And in my experience of telling stories about our Indian culture and mythology, I have realized one thing very importantly, that how women were respected and given a lot of importance in our culture traditionally. So there is a shloka that I'm going to start this whole afternoon with. It comes from Manusmriti and it says, Yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tatra devataha. Yatra tastu na pujyante sarvastatra phala kriya. Which means, where women are honored, divinity blossoms there. And where they are dishonored, all actions remain unfruitful. So I want to welcome once again to all our esteemed guests here as we are gathered here at the India International Center to celebrate a very special day. It's very incredible how, unlike the English language, our Indian languages have a certain gender for a lot of words, right? So for example, words like himmat, which is courage, shakti, that is power, pragati, development, niti, policy, shanti, peace, they're all feminine connotations. So that's how important womanhood is in our culture and language. So you don't have to be a stree to celebrate stritva, that is womanhood inside all of us. So here we are today gathered here to celebrate the womanhood, the stritva in all of us. So without any delay, let me first ask all of you to just stand up for the national anthem. Can we have the national anthem, please?
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you so much. And as we seek blessings from our motherland, the India, we also seek our blessings from the divinity, the Almighty God. And for that purpose, can I invite Vinita, who's the founder of Aambra Foundation, and all of our guests present here to please proceed towards the lamp lighting part. Fire holds a very important place in our culture. We seek energy, we seek warmth from fire, and we seek wisdom from the lamp. Thank you so much, our esteemed guests, for starting this whole session, the whole afternoon, where we are going to discuss a lot of information, knowledge. To start this with the divinity that resides in all of us and lighting this lamp. And now, may I invite Vinita Bakshi, the founder of Aambra Foundation, for the founder's address and the welcome note. Vinita, can we have you on stage, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashish, for such a beautiful introduction to our culture and our women. Good day, Honorable Chief Guest, Mrs. Lakshmi Puri ji, His Excellency Ugo Estuto, Her Excellency Ritva Koku Ronde, Dr. Rashmi Singh, Ms. Rekha Raikar, Balaji, and distinguished guests present here, and those who join us online and in different time zones, and those that will watch a recorded instance, and distinguished speakers for the day, Swagatam, Pranam. UN theme for International Women's Day 2022, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, and campaign Break the Bias should be more than a slogan. By bias, I mean gender bias. Yes, gender bias. 13th birthday is a watershed for humans. When I turned 13, so long ago, I felt proud to be a teenager. Today, I welcome you to She Speaks edition 13 with the humility of a new teenager, full of hope and optimism for the world. I want to say, but the second decade of this third millennium has thrown twin gauntlets of pestilence and war. Even as our world had just begun to adjust to a new normal of the pandemic, hostilities in Europe have a disturbing effect on rest of the planet, Earth. Does all this help us rethink and recalibrate the strategy for gender equality? If you can keep your head about you when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, are lines from a well-known poem, Rudyard Kipling. How do we keep our collective heads amidst all this confusion and chart the course to a more gender equitable society? How? We will soon hear the views of our honorable chief guest and distinguished panels of speakers. We will explore the various threads of thoughts in the creation of a gender equitable future. Our theme for this edition is Women, Leadership, Change. These keywords can be taken in any order. For example, leadership, change, women, or even women, change, leadership. Today, being International Women's Day, I will speak about women. Patriarchy has been around since the dawn of time. It has been institutionalized in law, customs, traditions, and yes, even in mythology. In so-called civilized societies, equal rights for a woman in exercising her vote was a hard-won battle. We must put it to good use because we Indian women got it right away at the time of Indian independence. The right to property ownership is a fundamental indicator of equality, and yet it is only a few decades ago that women could own property and only recently could inherit property. What is the reality in society? Women own less than 20% of land in the world. Women continue to be underrepresented in the workforce. Women are a latent potential to set our economies forward on the road to recovery. The latent productive potential of women in our society must be converted to direct contribution to the gross domestic product. A significant barrier for women's participation in the economy is safety. Safety begins from home. We need to ensure that women are safe from violence in their homes, in their neighborhood, in town or country, and in the workplace. Legislation is mostly in place, but we need gender sensitized enforcement and a balanced judiciary to help to step up to ensure transition to a more egalitarian society. The crystal ball of a girl child's future will reflect similar aspirations and opportunities as those for a male child. A 2020 study shows that there is a positive correlation between the location of a woman's police station and reports of crime. India has slightly less than 15,000 police stations, and yet, yes, you're right, there are less than 1,000 women police stations. Women form about only 12% of the police force. This imbalance must be corrected now. The ratio of women to men in legislative bodies tells its own tale. From the village panchayat, the town municipality, state legislature to the central parliament, the ratio of women is abysmal. We must aim to redress the gender imbalance. After all, we have the vote. We must break the bias. There have been media reports of casual and malicious misogyny among lawmakers, officers in government, judiciary, and other visible authoritative figures in all parts of the world and our society. There must be a public outcry when such reports surface, and social mechanisms to name and shame these people should be in place. Clearly, there is deeply entrenched prejudice. Correcting this is no mean task. Perhaps the process can begin in our textbooks and schools. There is much wrong to be righted in public discourse and private practice. We must break the bias. The campaign theme of International Women's Day 2022 is Break the Bias. Edition 13 of She Speaks will discuss how, from the perspective of leadership, to bring about change. And with this, I welcome and congratulate you all on the occasion of International Women's Day 2022 and She Speaks Edition 13. It is my honor to be inviting our chief guest for the occasion, Mrs. Lakshmi Puri, former Assistant General of the United Nations and Deputy Executive Director of UN Women, and a former Ambassador of India. She was Director of the flagship International Trade Division and Acting Deputy Secretary General of United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Prior to her 15-year stint at the UN, she served as an Indian diplomat for 28 years. She continued with her trade and economic policy work when she joined the UN in 2002 as the Director of UN Conference on Trade and Developments. In this capacity, she and the work of the organization for 7 years to make trade for development for the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. Ms. Puri was appointed Assistant Secretary General of the UN and Deputy Executive Director of the Pioneering Globe Entity for Promoting Gender Equality and Empowerment of Women, UN Women, in 2011. Joining the leadership team at the inception, she contributed strategically and vitally in building UN Women into a dynamic entity, a powerful advocate, knowledge and partnership hub, norm setter and program driver for gender equality and women's empowerment. She has been active in conceptualization and public advocacy spanning key areas of sustainable development, including poverty eradication, food security, agriculture, water, energy, urban development, education, trade in goods services, and in commodities investment, as well as intellectual property right regimes, migration, refugees, climate change, and humanitarian actions. She has contributed to publications and think tanks in these areas and to opinion editorials. Throughout her career, she has interacted with global leaders, decision makers, and opinion influencers at the highest levels. She has developed transformative partnerships with government, civil society, academia, youth, the private sector, and the media. Ms. Puri has received international awards and accolades for her work and contribution to international development, human rights, humanitarian peace and security policy making, and norm setting. These include the prestigious Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award, Novus Award for championing the Sustainable Development Goals, the Millennium Campus Award 2015, and Global Generation Award as Inspiration for Youth. Ms. Puri has several publications and op-eds to her credit. With this, I invite her for her keynote chief guest address.
Thank you, Vinita ji. Congratulations to you, the Aambra Foundation, Rekha ji and Balaji of the foundation, and the IIC for organizing this very important discourse on the International Women's Day. And I'm very happy to be here with the distinguished ambassador of the European Union, Ambassador Ugo Astuto, and my dear friend and gender equality champion of the EU. You know, we met, and then, you know, at the time when this initiative was being launched, the ambassador of Finland and Ambassador Ronde, and all of you, men and women. As was said, men are as important for changing the narrative and making women being able to, you know, charge forward and break barriers, change the bias. Unless the men change their bias and they help in changing the bias, it would not happen. And women's leadership also needs to be supported. So all of you, he for she's, as well as the she for she's, are very happy to greet you on International Women's Day. The theme, as was mentioned by Vinita, is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. And I would like to focus on women's leadership and entrepreneurship as an engine of both transformations, the sustainable one and the gender equality one. So, and of course, with India as the focus, which is 1/6 of humanity, which holds 1/6 of humanity in its bosom and is both a macrocosm and a microcosm of all possibilities. And I would also like to point out that there are many positive things that we can speak about in the context of women's entrepreneurship. Indian women are inherently enterprising and resourceful, and sky is the limit if they are given opportunities. And they have proven it time and again. And India can boast of many success stories of women's entrepreneurship. I know that some of them are young entrepreneurs are here, Purva and others. And, but we also have the very established ones like Kiran Shaw Mazumdar, Sangeeta Reddy, Meera Kulkarni, Vani Kola, Radhika Ghai Agarwal, Khushbu Jain, Falguni Nair, Tage Rita, to mention a few. The very fact that I can't mention all of them is a very positive sign. And they cover all aspects of financial, infrastructural, tech, social, and environmental entrepreneurship. In 2021, India witnessed the creation of 46 unicorns, out of which 13, which is 28%, were by women. So increasingly, all of these enterprises are national, regional, and even global in scope. Our dream and effort should be that they should not be rare swallows in the summer. of our entrepreneurial landscape. We should also simultaneously grow the enormous pool of small and medium enterprises, micro entrepreneurs, and over 7 million self-help groups and women's cooperatives all around the country, powering entrepreneurship at the grassroots level for both top-down and bottom-up expansion and consolidation of women's entrepreneurship. But there are constraints. And despite the priority attached by the government of India under Prime Minister Modi to women's entrepreneurship, measured by the scale, sectoral diversity, innovative capacity, and scope, women's entrepreneurship in India has miles to go before it can declare mission accomplished. Our economic growth is not generating a critical mass of women's voice, participation, and leadership in the economy through robust businesses, nor is it tapping or driving the exponential benefits of sustainable job-rich, this is very important, job-rich, and accelerated growth and development for all. Entrepreneurship is a crucial indication of women's economic empowerment and true leadership. That's why I told Vinita that I would like to focus on that today. And complements women's formal labor force participation, which, as she mentioned, is also low in India at 25%. Women constitute only 13.9% or little over 8 million of the total 58 million entrepreneurs, and are concentrated mostly in micro, small, and medium enterprises. And also 65% they work in non-agriculture, and 16 to 17% employ people only 16 to 17, otherwise the rest are self-employed, and their contribution to GDP is a mere 18%. Now, the transformative potential, however, is enormous. According to Bain & Company and Google report titled Powering the Economy with Her, accelerating the quantity and quality of entrepreneurship can create over 30 million women-owned enterprises, of which 40% can generate additional 150 to 170 million jobs, more than 25% of the new jobs required for India's working age population now until 2030. Power of gender parity could add another 770 billion to India's GDP. So it can also help harness India's vast youth and young women power, along with declining fertility rates, and help reap the demographic dividend, which Prime Minister Modi also referred to as one of the major planks of his Atmanirbhar Bharat. The challenge now is to make up for COVID-triggered setback to women's entrepreneurship and to use the creative destruction moment to build back better for and through women's entrepreneurship. But we need to ignite women's leaders into fiercely agents of change. And I like your, the putting together of change, leadership, women. You can put it in any order. The total financing needs of women-owned micro and SMEs in India are 68 trillion rupees or $158 billion. Access to finance credit is the single biggest challenge facing women entrepreneurs today. Supply side, with constraints and misperceptions on lending to them, and on the demand side, due to lack of financial literacy and entrepreneurial orientation. This impacts women-led businesses disproportionately and hamper growth. Currently, only 20% of women-owned enterprises access formal finance, that too on the basis of collaterals, and for fixed capital, not growth financing. So this is deeply ironic, given that the women-owned enterprises have stronger repayment records. Their non-performing loans are 30 to 50% lower than male entrepreneurs, are twice as profitable, and avail more products, up to 3 times than men. And yet the bias comes in. And yet women are seen to be less creditworthy, less of entrepreneurs. So that is something we need to change. Now, the actions. The Modi government has taken steps for supporting women's entrepreneurship, including under Atmanirbhar Bharat, FICCI, UN Women recommendations on access to finance, ease of doing business, and regulatory compliance and business development opportunities for women are being acted upon. So the first point is change the culture of patriarchy and gender bias in family, society, marketplace. So women's entrepreneurship and risk-taking is encouraged, valued, and invested in as a natural woman's vocation. Through awareness raising, role modeling, and incentives, establish and upgrade special facilities for education, training, marketing, networking skills, and close the gender gap in primary, secondary, tertiary, business, finance, STEM, digital education. Third is make big and SME market operators gender responsive. And we always advocate for women's empowerment principles, which requires companies, big or small, to adopt gender responsive policies within the company, in the marketplace, and with regard to the supply chain, but also in the community. Government, big business, and academic institutions must provide and scale up targeted and transversal support and incentives, hand-holding services, technological upgradation and adaptation, brand building, marketing, e-commerce, Tech 4.0 areas, e-payments, business-related enablement, all of these are vital efforts. Also, mandatory sourcing for women-led enterprises under public procurement policies. Some government schemes also promote subsidized credit, and we need women-focused funds. Also, a scheme, financial support to women-led cooperative businesses in agro-based industries. So, some state governments also offer all these help. So all of that ecosystem has to be strengthened continuously and upgraded. Banks and financial institutions have several women-specific schemes in their loan portfolios, and those also should be expanded, strengthened as we go forward. Access to affordable technology and digital tools and tailored solutions to leverage them to pivot and scale up women's businesses. That is being enhanced. Private sector is being urged to build gender responsive supply chains and deploy CSR funds, because that is a very important source for women to be mentored, to be supported. Greater sensitization about Atmanirbhar Bharat stimulus package and for bankers, MFIs, and other financial institutions on the finance needs of women-owned businesses, and the power of that is being and should be undertaken and strengthened. It has been globally recognized that the government is in the forefront of fostering the role of women entrepreneurship as a driving force for changing the narrative of women-led development, not only women's development, and accelerated growth towards a $5 trillion economy by 2025, while providing the most fruitful and satisfying of outlets. And I really consider entrepreneurship that. It's one of the most fruitful and satisfying of women's of gender equality in the country, society, economy, and the environment, including combating climate change. Now, at UN Women in New York, I was involved in mobilizing member states to support the adoption of Agenda 2030, which prioritizes, as you know, gender equality and women's empowerment, both as a means and an end to sustainable development, and has a comprehensive dedicated SDG 5 on it, with cross-cutting targets in 11 other sustainable development goals. We need to create an ecosystem with implemented, targeted, and transversal laws and policies to create an ecosystem with well implemented and also at all levels, central, state, and local, to support and foster women's economic empowerment and entrepreneurship. And of course, private sector and civil society have a very big role to play. We need to enable our women to go beyond the micro, SME, informal, traditional sectors, to grow big, to dream big, and also to achieve big. And be in new, innovative, and sunrise sectors, including of Tech 4.0, and empowering a formal quality care economy. The term care economy is something that we were working on very much in UN Women, because that is one of the areas which is very job rich, but right now it is not a quality care economy. So we really need to formalize, make it more quality care economy. We must achieve India Planet 50-50 in women's entrepreneurship and economic empowerment, leaving no one behind, in the spirit of Sarvodaya and Antyodaya. We must drive a multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder, all of government, all of society and economy project. Women and girls themselves must claim that entrepreneurial space and destiny. Men and boys must champion that. There has to be significant and transformational financial investment in it for a sustainable tomorrow. If I may take 1 minute to read out a poem on this day by my dear friend Shamim, who's a poetess but also a women's rights activist and educationist. But I just thought, and I apologize to our friends from the EU and Finland, but it is in Hindi. मैं एक धधकता सुलगता अंगारा हूँ जो मशाल बनने को आतुर है, ख्वाहिशों की तीर 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 जोड़कर बनाया हुआ ध्वज हूँ जो शिखर पर फहराने को व्याकुल है। क्या बताऊं, समय ने मेरे जूते में कुछ कंकर छुपा दिए, पांव तो घायल हुए पर दर्द ने हौसले बढ़ा दिए। कहते हैं कि चुभन में नाची में मग्न होकर यूं ढाल दिया है समय तुमने मुझे कि मेरे भीतर इस्पात की एक चादर बन गई। फौलादी मुट्ठियां तुम्हारे विरुद्ध कई बार तन गई। So she's challenging the circumstances, the patriarchal circumstances which gave her much pain, and she grew in that, but she has now formed a sheet of iron around her and she's able to overcome all that. सुना है कभी एक व्यक्ति पूरी फौज हो सकता है, यहाँ फौज मेरे भीतर से तुम्हें ललकार, सैकड़ों शेष नागों की तरफ फुफकारती है। मैं अपने हाथों से अपना दौर लाऊंगी, शिखर पर चढ़ अपना परचम लहराऊंगी, सारे जहां को अपने तेवर दिखाऊंगी और समय के सीने पर अपने हस्ताक्षरों से औरत की हैसियत का महाकाव्य दिखाऊंगी। I will show the world the true metal and worth of a woman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this insightful, your insightful take on the sustainable development of women leadership and entrepreneurship. Thank you. Before we move on to our first panel discussion, just a small anecdote I want to share with all of you. While working on a few stories about our Indian culture and mythology, I came across a line which sort of troubled me. The line was, सीता माता प्रभु श्री राम की सेवा करने उनके साथ वन में गईं, उर्मिला लक्ष्मण जी की सेवा करने वन में नहीं जा पाई। So the writer had so it translates to that Sita could not go to the forest with Lord Ram to service him. And Urmila, who was the wife of Lord Ram's brother Lakshman, Sita Mata went to forest with Lord Ram to service him. And Urmila could not go to service Lakshman. The problem word here was seva, service. So I told the writer to change it to Sita Mata Prabhu Shri Ram का साथ देने वन में गई. उर्मिला जी लक्ष्मण जी का साथ देने वन में नहीं जा पाई. Sita went to forest with Lord Ram to accompany him. Companionship is more important than service. So that is how we need to change our narrative. That is how we need to change our stories as well. Because one word makes a lot of difference in our mentality and the way we see things now. It's more important for the coming generations as well. All right, so moving on to our first discussion, which is on leadership and sustainable development. Female leadership is inclusive, encourages participation, and shares information and power with those she leads. Capability of considering the humane side of individuals and generate high levels of empathy is the hallmark. Women's empowerment is a key factor for achieving sustainable economic growth, social development, and environmental sustainability. Sustainable development is broadly defined as development which meets the requirements of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So without any delay, let me introduce the panel here in front of us. We are truly honored to have His Excellency Mr. Ugo Astuto, the Ambassador of the European Union to India. Mr. Astuto entered the Italian diplomatic service in 1991. His career in the Italian Foreign Service spans experience in the embassies in Nairobi and London, including as alternate director for Italy in the EBRD, European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, in the permanent representation in Brussels and the embassy in New Delhi, where he has served as the deputy head of mission. From February 2013 till July 2016, he was appointed to the European External Action Service, the EEAS, in Brussels, first as Director for South and Southeast Asia, and then as Deputy Managing Director or Director for Asia and the Pacific. From July 2016 to September 2019, he was the Principal Director for Asia in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Rome. He is the Ambassador for the European Union to India since October 2019. Can we have a round of applause for His Excellency, Mr. Ugo Astuto. Our second guest is Her Excellency Ms. Ritva Kokkuronde, the Ambassador of the beautiful country of Finland to India. Ms. Ronde is a Finnish diplomat. She started as Ambassador to Berlin on September 1, 2015, prior to being an ambassador to Washington since 2011. Between 1982 and 1985, Ms. Ronde worked as a freelance journalist. Between 1983 and 1984, Ms. Ronde worked as the secretary of the Embassy of The Hague in Finland. She joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1985. She has worked in several positions in the ministry and the Hague, Bonn, Nairobi, and Berlin representatives. Between 2003 and 2005, Ms. Ronde served as Deputy Director General of the European Department of Foreign Affairs. 2005 to 2009, Head of the Development Policy Department, and 2009 to 2011 as Under Secretary of State for Development and Development Cooperation. Since 2019, Ms. Ronde has served as the Ambassador of Finland to India and has sparked active work in the fields of 5G, 6G, AI, quantum computing, and much more. She is currently also the European Union Gender Champion in 2021. Thank you, ma'am. Our next guest is Ms. Rekha Raikar. She is an ICAS. Ms. Rekha Raikar Kumar is an ICAS officer of 1995 batch, as Member Finance Land Ports Authority of India, MHA, with effect from the 1st of November 2021. Before joining LPAI, she was serving as Joint CGA PFMS Division, CGA DOE MOF ND. She has experience of working with the field offices of various ministries like the HNFW, CBIC, CBDT, Department of Economic Affairs, DOE, Department of Atomic Energy, MOD, MOLNE, and MSDNE. She holds the MSc in and the Master in Financial Management (MFM) from University and degree of Master of Philosophy in Defense and Strategic Studies from the University of Madras. Can we have a round of applause for Ms. Rekha Raikar? And then our next guest is Mr. P Balaji, who is the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer for Vodafone India. A member of the national leadership team, Mr. P Balaji leads the company's regulatory, public policy and government relation activities, along with industry advocacy, corporate communications, reputation management and CSR. Prior to his present role, Mr. Balaji was the Director, Regulatory External Affairs and CSR at Vodafone India. He was responsible for leading the company's regulatory, public policy and government relation activities, and also the external affairs function overseeing corporate communications, reputation management and administering corporate social responsibility and the Vodafone Foundation in India. Prior to that, he was the Managing Director of Nokia India and Managing Director of Sony Mobile. Please have a round of applause for Mr. P Balaji. And moderating this session, we have our very own Ms. Vinita Bakshi, who is an author, founder and COO of Aambra Foundation. Vinita Sharma Bakshi is a novelist and the champion for the cause of gender parity. She founded the Aambra Foundation in 2012. She Speaks now in its 13th edition brings up topical themes for discussion and policy advocacy. Her background in CSR management in government, quasi-government and not-for-profit organizations has prepared her to identify community needs and deliver scalable programs with measurable outcomes. Her ability to work with a diversity of entities, be they corporate or government, in the field of gender sensitization makes Aambra Foundation an ideal partner for social initiatives. An alumni of Miranda House and the Delhi School of Economics, she believes in being a lifelong learner. Over to you, Vinita, for this insightful session. Thank you so much.
Friends, a very good afternoon to you all. It's my greatest honor to be sitting beside this eminent panel right before this very, very special audience here just now. Let me first briefly introduce my esteemed guests. I think Ashish already has. So I just want to add to what Ashish has said. Countries send their best and brightest as diplomatic representatives to Washington, DC, Moscow, Beijing, Paris, Bonn, and New Delhi. So the European Union is yeah. So the EU is not a single nation state, but a transnational state of about 500 million people whose ethnic and cultural diversity is not dissimilar to us in the Indian subcontinent. Finland, a really cold country filled with warm-hearted people, has the distinction of being the first European country to grant women the right to vote. The Finnish unicameral parliament ranks high in gender balance. Only one country surveyed by the Women Economic Forum that gives women more political power, and no country has a higher proportion of female government ministers than Finland. 63% of high-ranking politicians are women, a female-to-male ratio of 1.67, 1.44. Ma'am, these are Google figures, correct me if I'm wrong. This, coupled with having 31% female members of parliament, makes Finnish women some of the world's most politically powerful women. Excellencies, thank you so much that amidst all this turmoil in Europe, you gave us time for this important occasion for women. Rashmi has not yet joined us. And for P Balaji, I just want to add that when we started this gender sensitization seminar series, it is next to impossible to find a sponsor. And he has been very generously supporting us for last 6 years to put this panel together. And I really appreciate that. It's impossible because people find this gender discourse so dry and monotonous, you can break your head asking people and they won't collaborate. So, So, a gender sensitive leader, and Ashish has already introduced him. And I have shared what I appreciate about him. And Mrs. Rekha Raikar Kumar is a distinguished ICS officer and exposure to so many departments in the government. A very warm welcome, Rekha ji. So, none can underestimate the importance and value of sustaining the pace or momentum of development in pursuit of achieving the SDGs by 2030. In this sense, they are practices for each one of us to be adopted as part and parcel of life than just a diktat on a piece of paper to be carried out by a political representative or bureaucrat or an NGO, CEO, or any leader alone. In this sense, the onus of quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, increase industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequality, mobilize sustainable cities and communities, influence responsible consumption and production, organize climate action, develop life below water, advance life on land, guarantee peace, justice, and strong institutions, build partnership for the goals, is a shared vision, duty, responsibility, and practice for each of us, you and me, if we want to see a better world, a different world by 2030, irrespective of how pandemic in last 2 years and now a war in Europe stands to ravage the peace and equilibrium. Leadership is not a position or an individual person, but a series of practices that enables collaborative action towards a common mission and continuous learning. I'm dividing this session into 2 rounds. In round 1, I invite each of you key speakers to share your insights on the subject for 6 to 7 minutes. And then in round 2, I'll come up with a specific question to each one of you. So maybe start with His Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Aambra Foundation for organizing this event to mark International Women's Day. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Actually, we should not celebrate women and girls only on the 8th of March, but it's a day which helps. It helps in focusing our determination to work for equality and women empowerment. But before I start with the topic of the day, I would be remiss not to recall that as we speak, the dark clouds of war are back in Europe. So let me pay respect and tribute to all women and men in Ukraine at the heart of Europe who are supporting and defending our European democratic values at the cost of their life against the unprovoked and unjustified aggression from Russia. The theme of this year's International Women's Day here is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. I think previous speakers have put it very eloquently. Women and girls represent more than half of the world population. But their share in the world's health or employment is much lower than that. So I think it makes it's palpable evidence that investing in women's economic empowerment makes economic sense. It's not just fair and just. It's a must in terms of human rights development, but it also makes sense business-wise. So the pursuit of gender equality and environmental goals, which were also evoked earlier today, are mutually reinforcing. Promoting women equality also helps in promoting the collective work against climate change. Having women in the lead of sustainable change is very important for the European Union. And I think at home in Europe, we have been trying to work hard to ensure progress towards gender equality. So we are happy to say that in global rankings, As of 2019, 14 of the top 20 countries on gender equality belong to the European Union, and Finland is clearly a bright case in point. So we have made significant progress over the last decades, empowering women through equal treatment legislation, by gender mainstreaming, and taking specific measures in support of the advancement of women. But we realize that we cannot be complacent. Many inequalities still exist in Europe, so we have to continue working towards ending gender-based violence. We need to challenge gender stereotypes, and we need to close the gender gaps, and there are still many in the labor market. So we must achieve equal participation across different sectors of the economy. We need to close the pay and pension gap, because even today in Europe, the very basic principle of equal pay is not guaranteed. Our pursuit of gender equality doesn't stop at home. The world is one. Our societies and economies are interconnected. We are also trying to work with India for women's empowerment, and in India, the European Union currently finds several projects implemented by local civil society organizations. These projects are focused on promoting women's economic empowerment, increase women's participation in the fight against climate change, and in the digital transition. It's critical to address this disproportionate impact of environmental degradation, climate change, and disasters on women and girls, particularly from particularly those in vulnerable situations. The European Union also supports the We Empower Asia program, implemented by UN Women in 7 Asian countries, including India. It's a program which aims to support private sector to expand the economic participation and business opportunities for women. That's why it's so important to have business present and actively participating in the work for the advancement of gender equality.
Thing to do. Stronger engagement on gender equality is paramount to sustainable global recovery from the COVID-19 crisis and building fairer, more inclusive, more prosperous and sustainable societies. Achieving gender equality globally requires promoting equal economic independence for women and men, closing the gender pay gap, advancing gender balance in decision-making and labor market, ending gender-based violence. We all know this already, actually. But firstly, let me say a few words on the acute situation in Europe, which we will have huge global impacts, unfortunately, and also here in India. At this very moment, we stand by all women, children, and men of Ukraine, whose courage and determination is an inspiration to all of us. We echo the United Nations Secretary General's appeal to Russia to stop this aggression and the High Commissioner's words of grave concern of civilian casualties and human rights implications of Russian action. The European Union, including Finland, does not accept any efforts to undermine fundamental freedoms or existing international human rights obligations. The war is also a violation of women's rights. I would say more shanti here. And we all know that there is no development without security. There is no economic development without security. And there is no sustainable development without respect of international law, universal human rights, and respect of human dignity. Dear participants, as we have already heard today's seminar, women economic empowerment is central to realizing women's rights and gender equality. when more women work, economies grow. It's so simple. This is really simple. Women's economic empowerment boosts productivity, like we have heard already, increases economic diversification and income equality, in addition to other positive development outcomes. According to the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, women's participation in working life explains as much as 10 to 20% of the Nordic countries' economic growth in the past 50 years. 10 to 20% increase. Within individual companies, by the way, the impact of gender equality on economic growth is even stronger. In Finland, in my country, gender equality is more than just a value, like the founder president was already saying. It's really a cornerstone of our success as a society, as a country. It's no wonder that we are always top ranked. Now, at this very moment, only the second most equal country in the world. But I mean, very often. Did you, by the way, know that the word she or he, we have only one word for that, and it is hän. If you just go to the Khan market, so go around behind the corner a little bit. There is a very beautiful mural which the Delhi street artists have done last year, and it's about hän. So she or he.
Is it a Nordic term?
No, it is a Finnish.
It's Finnish.
Linguistically, we are completely a separate group.
Okay.
So hän, keep it hän. So we don't have any problems with any genders in that sense, like it is the discussion at the moment. And indeed, Finland was the first country in the world to grant full political rights, meaning right to vote, but right to run to office. And that meant 1906, before we were even independent, we had own parliament. 1906, we were able to also to choose women in the parliament, and therefore this kind of property rights, for instance, as basis of fundaments, were really taking care of some social rights as well. And we really hope to motivate and encourage others in this kind of way of sustainable development. And indeed, I was really honored to be a first EU gender champion in India last year. And indeed, there are many female decision makers in Finland, and some are putting attention that they are rather young. But we happen to take all talents on board, whether they are young, middle-aged, or old, they are there. And happily so that you have also young energy in the way. And even in private sector, we are, although I must say that here we really have to still do a lot, because even when Finland is one among the highest in the world when it comes to number of women directors in business and enterprises, on board members in listed companies, we still only have 1/3, and it is really not enough. And they say also, by the way, and it is also according to scientific proof, that those companies, listed companies, who have more women, more equal board members, are more beneficial. So if I were the one owner of the company, I would completely follow the international scientifically proved evidence. In Finnish Foreign Service, by the way, we are more or less about 50% of our ambassadors are women. So there is, the younger generation there is majority of women actually. So I mean, it is sensible thing to do. Do I have still some words on? I have to leave very soon because there is another important occasion. I'm very sorry about that. But about digitalization, couple of words. Because Finland is a front runner in digitalization and in digital innovation, and has performed extremely well also in international ranking here when it comes to university-industry collaboration, or global open data index, or we have most digital startups, for instance, per capita in Finland, or we have, for instance, we are first in usage of online banking and some of the other things. So it is no wonder that our two prime ministers last year, about this time, they announced a digital partnership also, and that includes in information and communications technologies, future mobile technologies, and digital education. So I think that Finnish success story relies on education, science, applying information, digitalization, and new technologies, and new ways of doing things. And I think this is matching very, very well in when I think the spirit in India also in this field. And we have, of course, in the European Union, like my colleague was saying, we have incredible many programs also in the sustainable digital future. Women and technology, it's another thing. It's sad to know, I was tweeting it also today, that when you think about gender equality, if we are approaching with current page, in the global, so gender equality in the global economy will take more than 267 years. 267 years. So we have to act immediately. Technology sector is an example of an area where gender equality is seriously lagging behind, and we need to improve that now. Girls should learn coding and become masters of new technologies. Well over 90% of jobs require an acute knowledge of STEM fields. This also raises the importance of the stronger involvement of women and girls in STEM fields and their equal chance for education in them.
Question has come on Facebook. If you would like to answer, it has come on.
Okay. And this is not all. We really need everybody to fill this gender gap. This is an area for men and women, boys and girls. We should all have equal chances to learn ITC skills needed today's and future digital world. And I can ensure that my government wants to ensure that girls and women are empowered to become agents and innovators in the digital world. We need to give tools and build a community for girls and women to understand technology and build their ideas. And this digitalization and technology, and I conclude here, can be really a game changer for societies and for girls and women, helping them to fulfill their potential and break cycles of poverty as well. Since Madame Puri is here, I would only say one sentence, that there is a very beautiful program, UN Women's 5-year Generation Equality Campaign, and Finland is leading one of the action coalitions on technology and innovation. And remind, really last words, women are not a minority, but half of the world's population. Without the equal inclusion of half of the world's talent, we will really not able to grow our economies for greater shared prosperity or achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Somebody said leave nobody behind. I think that is quite right. And I would say also act now. And for anybody who has any questions, please find my email address in our websites, and I will try to answer to all of these questions. But really apologizes, but I have to leave now. Thank you very much for this distinguished panel.
Ms. Puri, just 2 minutes, ma'am. We forgot to give you our token of appreciation, a little memento that we have for you. So can you please come on stage? And also before Her Excellency Mr. Onde leaves, a small gift from our side. Just a small way to say thank you, ma'am, for your presence. Can I hold the bag? Please?
Lakshmi ji with you also.
You might want to
I
come.
request.
You might want to come in here.
I think it was delay was on our part, so. Can somebody take it, please? And Lakshmi madam.
I think thank you so much.
I will photograph by you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So much for coming. Thank you so much for coming. I will. Thank you. आपका
I'll leave in 2 minutes. मैंने क्या
या आपका पैनल है तो अभी आपको बोलना है रश्मि जी
just-
अभी अभी आई
I'll have to leave because मेरा ना it's my own function, so I have to leave.
Moving the discussion forward, we have now among us Dr. Rashmi Singh, IAS. Dr. Rashmi Singh is an IAS officer and is currently Executive Director, National Mission for Empowerment of Women at the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for gracing the occasion for us, and let the discussion continue, please. Over to you, Vanita.
Sorry. The designation needs to be corrected, but I'll do it when I speak. Yeah, designation week. मुझे भी happen यहाँ पहुँचना है Indo-Islamic Center. Chaliए wait here. Yeah, so after Balaji, then I'll speak. Yes. Take it. After Balaji. Balaji, after you.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Balaji, would you like
Yeah,
to
sure.
share your thoughts?
Yeah,
with
no
us
problem.
on-
Absolutely. I think we've been fortunate to have yourself, Ms. Puri, Mr. Ugo, and I think Ritwa speak. So frankly, it covered a lot of important areas that are very dear to us, to me personally, and as an organization as well as Vodafone Idea. I guess 2 or 3 things in a personal reflection. I live at home with my mom, my daughter, and my wife, so surrounded by women, so very blessed for that, and I think I'm a better person for that. That goes without saying. That's more a personal confession. On the company side, we work a lot on a few of the SDGs with a lot of focus on women, and whether it's good health and well-being, whether it's on the livelihood, quality education, gender equality, or in terms of the decent work and economic growth. Those are some of these areas that in the SDG goals are important for our organization. Through our foundation itself, we do some seminal work where we believe that technology is a great enabler, and I think we heard Ambassador Ritwa talk a lot about technology and how they're leading that in Finland. And to my mind, that's one way to ensure that the opportunities are provided to women to actually rise to their true potential and add the significant value to society that they are 100% capable of. So whether it's through our work that we do in our digital literacy program called Jadu Ginnika, where we've reached out to about 10 million people, nearly 50 to 55% of them are women. The emphasis that we have there is if we reach a woman, we make sure the whole family is financially literate and taken care of, and that's something that we found from practical experience. In the agri space, again, we've used technology as a means to add, because there is a lot of women folk that are working in the agri space and they can benefit from such technological interventions. Whether it's in the women empowerment space that we work with Seva, and we've actually created simple tools for women to become actually rural entrepreneurs. 8,000 women serving nearly 4 to 5 lakh rural households in a very meaningful manner is something that technology has made happen. And the way they look after their families and their constituents is incredible. Quality products being distributed by them in a timely manner, at affordable rates, and they feel a sense of pride, and they get that sense of, should I say, respect from their communities. I could go on, but we even focus on some of the very important issues around women's safety. We work with NASSCOM. We've created a lot of apps such as My Aambra, which is to make sure that women feel safe, whether it's at home or on the streets, that they have a safety net, which I think is extremely critical in times like these, is something that we work on. We also have gender sensitization apps. We call it Girl Rising. Again, the intent is through gamification, if we can make sure that the men folk, the boys, can actually understand what they need to know about providing safe spaces, and also, you know, encouraging talent in women to kind of come out. So there are many things like these that we focus on to break gender stereotypes. So that's as far as the foundation work is concerned. On the work front, diversity and inclusion extremely big in our company, right from providing the right conditions. I mean, small things. Ladies in distribution, if you do not have enough toilets, how will they actually go in the field and actually provide distribution services? It's something that we make sure we ensure that on every route that a lady is working the market has that access. Simple thing like that, right? To much more evolved things about providing adequate time for maternity, work from home, extended work hours. We think as a company we have evolved to providing the best, because we say that when the women and our managers and our employees are their best, that's when we shine as an organization. And I think that's very integral to our organization, our culture. With that, I'd like to end with saying thank you so much, Vinita, for inviting me. This is an extremely illustrious, should I say, panel, and I think the work that you guys do is really laudable, and we'll always have our support. So thank you so much, and I apologize, we have our own function at 4 o'clock for which I need to moderate, so I have to leave early.
Totally
Thank you so much, ma'am.
understand.
Thank you so much, all of you.
So we are joined by Dr. Rashmi Singh now, and she has an illustrious, as Ashish was just saying, so her journey has been illustrious in governance and convergence. And when I met her first, she was so vocal about her views on the women empowerment and gender sensitization, and how the transformation in society needs to come. And she's been working for it as a bureaucrat, and in a personal capacity, she's been working for it tirelessly ever since I've known her. And Rekha ji, also, as I shared with you, she has such a vast experience and an exposure to so many departments in the government, right from labor up to direct and indirect taxes, a wide range. So I request Rekha ji to share your insights on the subject today, that is women, leadership and change.
Thank you so much. I'm in fact privileged, and it's my honor that I'm able to participate in this seminar, which is arranged by Aambra Foundation, and is able to talk to you. In fact, quite a few luminous people have spoken before me. Let me first start with my introduction. You can say when the parents told me that your birth name was Savitri, and I got a jerk, because Savitri is a lady who fought with the Yama, the god of death. So if she could fight, I think I derived my spirit from that day, the 5th day of the birth, when they actually write your name, your birth name in that way. So Patri, right. Thank you. So I think the struggle and the happiness that you are a fighter starts from there. So it is a student, gender activist, turned bureaucrat, turned seasoned bureaucrat, you can say. But the journey is huge, and I will be basically focusing on my experiences in last 27 years of bringing up this gender parity in whichever way you can. Let me just bring to your notice that in 1987, United Nations defined sustainable development as a development wherein you are meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So simple. So indirectly, they have made it very clear that anything which does not compromise the abilities of the future generation, whether it is resources or otherwise, is something which is sustainable. And as all the previous speakers have spoken so much in length, is that is a fact. Most of the poor people in the world are women. So it's a vicious cycle: poverty, not having education, not having proper means of livelihood, and again poverty. So I think somewhere we all know the answer to this whole thing is the imbalance in the system. Nature always talks about only balance. Whenever there is a positive and negative charges, I am a physicist, balance, then only you can have a proper current flowing. You can't have it if there is an imbalance. And the same thing applies with the nature. So as and when I realized after joining the bureaucracy in 1995 that things are very different in the government. All the thousands and thousands of schemes are for a group, and some are for women, disadvantaged, disabled, old, etc., etc., etc. So the first thing was mindset. How can I help in my very, very small way to ensure that there is some parity brought in the designing of the schemes and to ensuring that it is actually given to the right people. So I will just narrate because the time is limited and we are already, I understand, delayed. My experiences in 3 ministries mainly, even though there are many. First is when during this horrible pandemic that had caught us, starting from March 2020, even now we are struggling with it. During this time, the Government of India put all its focus on the direct benefit transfer schemes, and I was working in the direct benefit transfer schemes. It was, to ensure that each marginalized person, whether it is a construction worker, farmers, women, street vendors, you count and I can tell you that there were efforts to ensure that in spite of lockdown, in spite of every adverse thing, you have to run the show. So during this time, almost 500 lakh crores of rupees could be put into the accounts of those all people who are on the periphery, and mostly women and children. So that was a very satisfying work because therein you had to ensure that even though the system is digital, every level is pursued. I don't remember a single day sitting at home during the pandemic because you have to be present. I remember those empty lanes, my office is in CP, going, not a single soul around, and with the fear that am I carrying the disease back to my kids and my mother? I mean, so those 365 days of working in that particular experience, the satisfaction that it came, that sitting here in the system, you are able to reach to somebody who's there near Kanyakumari or sitting in Leh and is waiting for that whatever meager amount that you can transfer in her account. Same was the case with Jandan accounts. Those women had never heard of banks. Forget about having an account. So that is one way wherein I felt that it is, because I am a bureaucrat and 2 lakh people appearing and madam can, Rashmi ma'am, that 600 or 700 making it to the last level. So that way you are a part of an elite. But then just by breaking that ceiling, is it okay? No. What I for myself, I understood that just breaking the ceiling is not important, but how many are below that ceiling who still needs that helping hand from me? If I am able to pull them up, or if I am able to give some kind of a multiplier effect through the schemes that I am employing, through the ministries where I am working, I think that will make a lot of difference to the lives of those women who are still stuck below that ceiling. So same thing, I think ma'am will be giving a chance. So I'll share my experiences with Labour Ministry, Skill Development Ministry, Ministry of Atomic Energy, and MHA, of course, if we get time. Thank you so much.
Yes, we will have time. We are very keen to listen to you. And with this, I request Dr. Rashmi Singh to share her views. She's a Secretary in Department of Women and Child Development, Government of Delhi. And I'm sure she also has a lot of stories of pandemic, and today's topic is women leadership and change. So within the system and as an individual and a development practitioner, what is the change and we can make in the system and as an individual?
Thank you, Vinita. So, first of all, let me introduce myself by saying that right now I happen to be a special secretary, come director with the Women and Child Government of Delhi. And since morning, I'm hearing on different platforms, you're introduced differently. So, I thought let's say with bureaucrats, that is always a challenge because you do, kind of don multiple hats, different types of time, there are different challenges, pressures. But within all this, what's most important is never to lose sight of who you really are. And end of the day, I think that's what holds true for women across different spectrums, to know who they really are, what they stand for, what more they can do, and what they stand for, not just for themselves, but for womanhood as a whole. And now, increasingly, for society as a whole, increasingly for nation's growth as a whole, for what nation stands for. So I personally feel that what women stand for actually, epitomizes, what growth and development, and that too the human development actually stands for. So that is something which I wanted to underscore, in terms of the very identity of a woman, with the notion of, how we are today looking at the growth engine. Of course, Niharika ji is here and she's going to talk about, the entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem, the economic growth engine. But at the same time, I'm kind of laying the foundations of looking at the entire spectrum of human development, जिसको हम एक कहते हैं कि मानव विकास के जो मुद्दे हैं, ठीक है, वो भी समावेशी विकास जिसमें कि सब पहलू मिले रहते हैं. सब पहलू क्या हैं? महिलाओं को कोई विभाजित करके उनके नीड्स, आइडेंटिटी को तो हम नहीं देख सकते. वहाँ स्वास्थ्य भी है. अब स्वास्थ्य है तो उसमें भी मानसिक स्वास्थ्य भी है, शारीरिक स्वास्थ्य भी है, दोनों है. द फिजिकल एंड मेंटल वेलबींग ऑफ अ वुमन. I'm again underscoring the importance of these points because for me, it's most important to understand what women's leadership today stands for and why it is so important, for women to be in a leadership position. Now, when I say women to be in a leadership position, I don't just mean, as the Vice Chancellor or as Aambra being headed by women across different spectrums. The position doesn't matter, the post doesn't matter, but are they in a position to influence positive change and growth? Starting from the family, maybe. Are they in a position to actually influence the way in which the girl child is being brought up in the family? Are they in a position to influence कि जो बच्ची घर में पैदा हो रही है उसकी परवरिश के साथ साथ उसके जो ड्रीम्स हैं वो बीच में वो क्रश नहीं हो जाए. तो वो है एक लीडरशिप, इन्फ्लुएंस करना, इम्पैक्ट करना, पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट करना. एंड वो जो इन्फ्लुएंस रखता है मेरे हिसाब से वो लीडर है. और महिला तो बहुत ज़्यादा वो इन्फ्लुएंस रखती हैं. और सस्टेनेबिलिटी की, बिकॉज इट्स क्वाइट इंटरेस्टिंग. विनीता, आई मस्ट कॉम्प्लीमेंट यू फॉर दिस टॉपिक, लीडरशिप एंड सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट. सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट स्थायी, टिकाऊ, ठीक, ब्रेक नहीं करे बीच में, अनवरत चलता रहे, निरंतरता ये रहे, यही है ना सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट. तो उसमें मतलब कहीं ना कहीं सी विमेन अगेन द काइंड ऑफ रोल विच दे प्ले, द लॉन्ग टर्म, the capacity to look at things which are not just material, the capacity to look at things which are, looking at everybody's well-being. Like in a family, I've never seen a mother distinguish between, the children, कि नहीं ये तो प्यारा है, ये तो प्यारा नहीं है, and this thing. So, capacity to be more inclusive. So those are the kinds of values, normally we talk about compassion, empathy, we talk about, giving, selflessness, and we talk about patience. But I also talk about something which is called a collaborative style of leadership, which according to me is one of, very important fundamental pillars for sustainable development. Why? Because problems are complex. जटिल हैं समस्याएं. अगर समस्याएं जटिल हैं तो उसका समाधान भी आसान नहीं. समाधान भी वो भी उतना ही वृहत होना चाहिए, उतना ही होलिस्टिक होना चाहिए, उतना ही मल्टीडिसिप्लिनरी होना चाहिए, उतना ही इंटरसेक्टोरल होना चाहिए. मतलब वो जब तक उसका कनेक्ट हम नहीं समझते हैं. नाउ फॉर मी द कनेक्ट is not something which is to be written about in essays and articles or theories alone. We have to live it in our thinking. We have to live it in our approach. And that's what each one of us who are here today actually bring that kind of value, wisdom, practical knowledge, insight, to be able to live it, in our day-to-day experience. And I think I'm going to end by, also complimenting Aambra, Vinita Bakshi and her team, for being able to take forward a journey which I have seen, would have started in terms of some discourse, but they've gone much beyond it, by taking discourse down to the grassroots to be able to change and impact some lives, through very, very innovative things. Okay, so what ways changes should be made in a household for a girl child to be a leader? Most important, the changes is that, don't get bogged down by the gender stereotyping yourself. Allow the girl to decide if she wants to play with the doll or she wants to go out and play cricket. So let her decide, give her a choice. Don't condition. Similarly, give a choice to the boy. If the boy wants to cook, don't ever say कि ये तो लड़कियां ही कर सकती है. So give them a choice, yeah. And I think there's a, feminine quality in a man and a masculine quality in a woman, which needs to be a matter of choice. What option? And again, these are not confrontationist. When I talk about collaboration, between the two qualities, we need both qualities actually. So the world needs that. All of us need that. The kind of challenges that we brave, day in and day out, we learn to become fighters also. I know many of us. And then, at times you'd be actually told, कि नहीं वो तो feminine quality नहीं है. क्यों? क्योंकि वो तो fight कर ही नहीं सकती. ऐसा नहीं है. So, we need to imbibe the best of both. अगर अन्याय है तो लड़ेंगे. अगर नहीं ये करना है, peace, शांति, पुरुषों में क्यों नहीं? पुरुष क्यों नहीं उठा सकते हैं, अपने बच्चे को प्यार कर सकते हैं, परवरिश कर सकते हैं. होम केयर इकोनॉमी की जो हम बात करते हैं कि why is it the women alone in the care economy? Taking care of like the elders, persons in disability, or like, why can't the man also do it? So it's, yeah. So exactly, so the emotions also. In fact, it's quite interesting. I'm carrying something which is, it's a poster. And yesterday I was somewhere where I took a short quiz. And वो poster कहाँ है क्या कहीं पे यहाँ? I think it had like a lot of, maybe it's there. So a lot of interesting things about like man and women and their responses. So in any case, this particular gathering, आप सबों को पता है, सब कुछ पता है. ठीक है, सबको सब कुछ पता है. बस है कि वही है कि हम क्या उसको डे टू डे ज़िंदगी में उसको अमल कैसे कर रहे हैं. ये इम्पॉर्टेंट है. मैं अपनी बात आम्रा की इसलिए बताना चाह रही थी क्योंकि मैं हमेशा विनीता बख्शी को मैं चैलेंज भी करती थी कि नहीं, सिर्फ बात नहीं रहे, सिर्फ डिस्कोर्स नहीं रहे, सिर्फ कंसर्न नहीं रहे, सिर्फ चिंता नहीं रहे, क्योंकि समय है कार्य करने का, कुछ करने का. सहेली समन्वय केंद्र एक हम लोगों ने शुरू किया है. निहारिका जी इज़ वेरी फेमिलियर विद दिस. And, they are going to have a collaboration also, Delhi Skill University, which is like looking at, mapping these aspirations of young women entrepreneurs, who would want some support. First to mentor them, create, be able to, use a network, a supportive network, through something like an incubation hub, incubation center. So that's what the program stands for. Now, even before any kind of long-term structured program, there were, many organizations who came and partnered with us. Now, it's quite interesting that Aambra came forward to say that, well, we are ready to train girls in paramedics. I said, well, do you have the, research methodology, what kind of curriculum? And they really worked hard on it, I must say, came up with a beautiful curriculum and trained the girls. And when I saw, are the girls here, some of them? No. Okay, so when I spoke to some of the girls, it was like a life-changing, experience for them. So that, in my view, is like, again, real empowerment. And where many of the girls have today got jobs. They are interns, paid interns, So that's what, the care economy changing actually from just being seen as caregivers in the confines of the home, in a, world where women's work does not get counted. Why? Because it's not monetized. Yeah, so it's like started from there to now looking at, okay, you are a good caregiver, but, you can have the value, of that work, which will count in the GDP. Yeah, so, sustainable development ke liye, again, it's very important to make every woman's, work count. Not only work, I'm going to say that every woman's presence needs to get counted by the kind of respect, the dignity which she, obviously is rightfully entitled. All the best. Thank you.
So we will continue with this discourse and discussion with our two very eminent panelists and bureaucrats. And I am wanting to ask, Rekha ji was mentioning that, her experience she would like to share in labor and other ministries, and how, would you, how leadership, women leadership and change can be brought up from, say, rural level and, in urban centers, and how the leadership can contribute to sustainable development is actually what we are talking today. So you being two eminent leaders within the system, one in the state government and one in the central government, so how are you leading this change?
The canvas of this question is quite large. I'll try to make it as small as possible. My experience in working with Ministry of Labor and Entrepreneurship and Skill Development, there were two major things which I feel privileged and happy that there was a contribution. One is there were huge number of labor laws to make them into small 4 labor codes, wherein maternity benefits, overtime benefits, wages on par, and has a security for the working women. Mines के लिए mine inspector की post में women not eligible. Clear. 70 years down the line, nobody thinks why not. I mean, there are mines on the top of the land also. Mines में हमें लगता है only underground, right? So when you codify them, make it simpler, make it much better, then out of the 24% organized labor and 76% labor which is in the unorganized sector, you are actually contributing to improve the lives of the unorganized sector people. So that is one aspect. There are a lot, due to paucity of time, I would not like to speak. Skill development, you will be surprised to know that starting from aeroplane, aeronautics, green jobs, all kind of jobs that you can think of, plumbing, domestic worker, there are about 64 categories of skills that can be acquired and taught. And that's why the whole target was to introduce skill development from the 5th standard through the schools itself, to remove the gender stereotyping of the roles that you generally attach. Beauty है तो सिर्फ लड़कियाँ जाएंगी, और medical वो है तो सिर्फ boys जाएंगे, plumbing में boys जाएंगे, that kind of thing. So it takes time and efforts from somebody from inside the machinery to break the stereotypes and ensure that it happens for all. So there are a lot of experience of India skills, world skills, how to make it more amenable. Can the working housewives get some course which is of 3 hours duration, very near from her house, she can do it, she can engage into some additional income for her, like that. So inclusion. Suppose I'll give you a very small example. All the zoos, they have made it only digital payment possible. So you have to online book if you have to visit a zoo. Yesterday's incident, my maid along with her 2 small kids, she took a rick, 150 rupees paid, went to the zoo. She was told, no, you can't pay, you can't enter. 1 hour she kept wriggling with the person because online, what are we talking about? I mean, how many people have the access to the online systems? Again, disillusioned, 150, again she paid, came back with 3 kids without not able to show what they deserved after a 1.5 year of pandemic. So I think these are the things which, I mean, it's quite interesting and it will make you think. There's one question, so I'll just, another 1 minute I'll take it. The question is that what impact have COVID-19 left on you as a woman? Very bad. In fact, the first year of the COVID was good. I could work, my husband was working, nobody got it. But the second wave, me, my husband, we were in ICU and touched and came back, and all the 3 kids were on oxygen. So it was a terrific battle to recover. And as a woman, it has made me much stronger. I have lost some friends, I have lost some relatives, but it also ensured that I tried to keep the supply of medicines and food and every help possible to the families to whom I could reach and understand the pain and inability and helplessness of those people. So I think that is what all of us have done in one way or the other.
Yes.
And as a bureaucrat, I felt that it was a blessing in disguise, which has made a much more iron out of me and made me actually a much stronger woman and stronger bureaucrat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rekha ji. And last question to Rashmi ji while winding up the panel also. Rashmi ji, in rural areas, women also go to farm and do farming. And you know, your views on that and
Interesting,
how
interesting.
you
And I'm glad that, yeah, you know, you didn't pose a question with my current hat, you know, because it would have meant, well, where are the rural areas? So because as women, we also, you know, learn to actually recognize now the ultimate urban-rural continuum which is happening. And, you know, in the influx, the outflux, the, you know, migrants, you know, complex issue as a whole, you know, and the kind of vulnerability of women in the rural area that you have just talked about, you know, from the question itself, you know, that poses a huge challenge again, related back to where I stopped, making women's work count. You said rural area, women also go to the farm, but, you know, how many women are actually counted as women farmers? Do we know that? No. In terms of data, if you see, it's men who are the farmers, right? I mean, women, although do lot of the work related with drudgery of, you know, so-called जो गांव से संपर्क रहते हैं कि झुक झुक करके क्या करते हैं वो धान को बोना है ना, धान को बोते हैं झुक झुक करके, तो सबसे जो ड्रजरी वाला काम होता है वो करते हैं. लेकिन उसके बाद जहाँ नॉन ड्रजरी वाला वो बाद के फेजेस में जो चीज़ें आ जाती हैं वो तो पुरुष करते हैं. लेकिन फसल जब वो बेचते हैं वो पुरुष के खाते में वो पैसा जाता है. और लाइक नॉर्मली लाइक नाम भी जो आता है लैंड का नाम, ज़मीन भी ऐसा नहीं है कि सभी किसान के पास ज़मीन है, लेकिन जो ज़मीन है भी, you know, how many women themselves are landowners.
यही बात
How
मैंने
many
अपने
women
founder
exactly,
address में
yeah.
बोली. Only
So,
20% in the
absolutely.
world
So that is why,
own land.
you know, even though women are working on the farm doing farming, you know, the kind of access to resources which they should have, and starting with like, you know, their identity, you know, access to like, yeah, land title, you know, then, you know, there are many other concomitant things which come. Credit, they often get deprived of credit because, you know, what is the collateral? So if they don't have any assets, so, you know, it's a kind of a vicious circle. Yeah, so
Yes.
you have to have asset to be able to get more asset,
More.
to be able to get a loan. So, you know, we need to actually position women, you know, in a stage where it's kind of a, you know, for me it's like a flight takeoff. एक बार take off हो गया, you know, they can go to soar to any heights. But take off ही अगर नहीं होता है तो land कैसे होगा? So that's the kind of like dilemma which often happens with women, especially in the rural areas. That's, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rekha ji. Thank you, Dr. Rashmi Singh. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
ऐसे मुझे पोस्टर भी मिल गया था, फिर मैं लगाती हूँ, but इसको maybe I put it on my page, you know, whatever, Twitter,
Yes.
Facebook, इस पे डाल दूँ.
What is
ठीक
this?
है?
This is
It's
regarding
interesting.
okay.
So I'll put
Okay.
it there.
Okay.
Yeah. Because sorry.
He can take a picture of your.
Oh yes, this is breaking all gender stereotypes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Actually, we sat and made it with whom to read.
Mama,
Yeah.
take your card so that I can get in touch with you.
Sure. बाहर चलते चलते.
Rekha ji, one picture with you. Rashmi ji, please wait for a photograph.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're doing such a great work.
Thank you so much.
हाँ, मैंने पूरा बताया नहीं, मैंने उसका journey describe किया कि difficult work was done and.
That is very true. We all know it. कितना women contribute.
नहीं, you must
to
tell
the
Niharika
labor.
ji about it. Yeah,
Yes,
very
I
interesting.
hear
yeah.
from Niharika ji.
नहीं, अब
And
बताइएगा.
we have made some film also. Niharika ji will share with you. And with the next panel, you know.
So
what
those
is the
little
thing that-
experiments going
so
on,
many
like this was also
documentary.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For the panel? नहीं, you have such illustrious speakers, हमें जल्दी जाने दीजिए तब दूसरे Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to our guests, and thank you, Vinita, for this wonderful session. I hope all of us have a lot of takeaways from whatever has been discussed till now. And we are going to start our next session very soon. So without any delay, let me quickly introduce you to our next topic of discussion, which is entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem in India.
Just let me check it. Great. इधर बैठो या आप बैठे थे ना? अच्छा. Why don't I sit here ना? You sit in the center because you are the.
Mr. Jain, I have not seen.
No, he isn't.
I think he's right here.
अभी आया हूँ.
Me back there.
मैं आपके मैं तो सबसे पहले आ गया.
आप आए थे, I saw you.
हम लोग एक बार मिले हैं बहुत साल पहले. I was in तब आप IIT में ही थे. हाँ हाँ. मैं तब आया.
Thank you so much. A warm welcome to all our panelists here for this next discussion, which is about entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem in India. Well, entrepreneurship is an important tool to empower the women in the country by increasing family, economic, financial, and the social status. Women are making a mark in this area of life too. With women now traversing in this arena, it is evident that the future is female. There has been a surge in the number of women entrepreneurs, leading to newer ideas coming to life. Women are inspiring women, and there is a need to keep up that momentum. But what still lacks is the backing from our society to keep these entrepreneurial ideas coming and to keep women going. We all need to come together, support women, and move forward as a society, since only then can our world see more of Indira Nui, Falguni Nayar, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, and several others on the path to greater success. It is my honor to introduce the panel in front of us here. Well, to start with, on my left is Purva Agarwal, who is the founder and CEO of Good Piggy. Interesting name, Good Piggy, and the Ambassador Women in Tech India. Purva is the first female solopreneur in India and third globally to enter the children's online banking and wallet space with her startup called Good Piggy. As India's first disruptive ed fintech startup for pre-teenagers, Good Piggy positions as a digital piggy bank and behavioral rewards platform, doubling up as an investment channel to form good habits while contributing towards their financial security. Purva is also the ambassador of the India chapter of Women in Tech, an international non-profit organization that's headquartered in Paris, France, and which is dedicated to promoting greater diversity in tech. She is also a financial analyst at a private equity investment advisory firm in London and a writer under mentorship with a leading publication for institutional investors. Please welcome Purva Agarwal. Then we have the honor of having Professor Dr. Niharika Vora among us. She is the Vice Chancellor of the Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University. She has been a visiting professor with the University of Manitoba and taught at the Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar. Currently the Associate Editor of the Indian Psychological Abstracts and Reviews and Book Review Editor of International Journal of Cross-Cultural Management. She has also coordinated various training programs for small-scale industries located in Orissa in collaboration with Small Industries Development Bank of India. She has been involved in training of executives of various national and multinational corporations. Welcome, Dr. Niharika Vora. Thank you. Next guest is Professor Sudhir K. Jain. Professor Jain is currently the adjunct professor at the Department of Management Studies, IIT Delhi, from where he superannuated in June 2017. Earlier, he has served as head of Department of Management Studies at IIT Delhi during 2010 and 2012, and as Vice Chancellor, Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University in Katra, Jammu and Kashmir, during February 2013 to March 2016. Previously, he also served as Executive Director, National Institute of Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development, NISBUD, under the Ministry of MSME, Government of India during 2002-2003. We have an honor of having Professor Sudhir Jain with us. Our next guest is Mr. Sandeep Bhargav, who is the Member Advisory Board, CEO at Leap EdTech. Experienced with a demonstrated history of working in the corporate affairs and public policy domain in telecommunications industry. Strong in advocacy, policy, external and diplomatic relations, countrywide, states, overseas, and a business development professional, especially for SME and startups. Mr. Sandeep Bhargav. And moderating this session, we have Ms. Vinita Sethi, who is the SVP Apollo Group, a graduate of economics from DSC and IUJ, Japan. Vinita has worked in industry associations like FICCI as well as CII for over 20 years. She moved to the corporate sector, having worked with both with Spice Global and Bharti Airtel. She is currently with Apollo Hospitals Group as the corporate and public affairs lead. Passionate about promoting gender inclusion and equity, she's been a convener of Empowering Greater 50, a FICCI FLO initiative. She has also written extensively on Indian economy, global relations, health, and education affairs. Vinita is also on board of FIND and leads the Deputies Group at Edison Alliance of World Economic Forum for creating digital health inclusion globally. Well, over to you, Vinita, for this interesting session. Thank you.
I think it's been a very wonderful day since we started, and there's not much that I'm going to bore you all with the statistics. We've heard so many statistics, but I think the matter of fact, end of the day, is that today we as women have done well compared to maybe a decade ago, but there's so much more to do. And as Mrs. Lakshmi Puri said, this is not a battle of women for women by women, but there has to be a he for she as much as there has to be a she for she. So I'm really happy that we have all the men here and we have all the women here, and together I think we can really connect with the theme of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, I'm a career woman, I'm not an entrepreneur. But why am I moderating a session on entrepreneurship? Because I think inherently in every woman there's an entrepreneur. This morning when I woke up, I saw a beautiful poem from the I Am World in my Facebook page, which kind of said that every woman who manages her house, or every woman who's a child, who takes care of her children, her aging parents, or is a caregiver, all the work is not of women is not recognized, a theme we have been hearing since afternoon. And this was a beautiful poem in Hindi कि हर स्त्री को उसको एक ऐसी recognition दो कि वो अपना रास्ता खुद तय कर सके. पर वो पूरी poem का focus था a woman as a child, as a caregiver, basically घर को संभाल रही है, मकान को घर बना रही है. तो मुझसे रहा नहीं गया, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to say this in Hindi, So I added to my friend Kavitri from IIM, and I told her, I said, इसमें एक पहलू और है, वो मकान को तो घर बनाती है, पर मकान को एक कॉर्पोरेट से भी अच्छा चलाती है. उसको प्रॉफिट लॉस का इतना ज्ञान है, उसको इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करने का इतना एक्सपीरियंस है, ज़रा उसको आजमा के तो देखो. उसको ट्रांसपेरेंसी और गवर्नेंस, और जो कि रश्मि जी कह गई थी, बच्चों में फ़र्क नहीं करती. ट्रांसपेरेंसी, गवर्नेंस, जो हम बोर्ड, विमेन ऑन बोर्ड्स के एथिक्स या विमेन ऑन एनीवन के एथिक्स करते हैं, वो तो अपने घर में खुद ही चला रही है. ज़रा उसकी एडवाइस लेकर तो देखो. वो सिर्फ एक घर को मकान को घर ही नहीं बना सकती, वो आपके कॉर्पोरेट्स को भी कहीं से कहीं ले जा सकती है. इसीलिए आई थिंक इन एवरी वन ऑफ अस there's an entrepreneur, because we've done this. This is inherent in us. There's so many qualities that we already have. Then what is holding us back? There's another very beautiful line which I've never forgotten. Christine Lagarde, IMF head, in 2008 financial crisis, because I'm an economist and I went through that crisis in depth. And I even had the opportunity to meet her. And this is what she said. She said if Lehman Brothers was Lehman Sisters, we probably wouldn't have had the crisis. So I'm not sure about that, but these are good things to hear. And the reason I'm saying I'm not sure about this is, then if all this is there for us, if we know that women are only 14% of entrepreneurial base, very happy and proud that Falguni Nair has made a dent. In fact, we also have an LSR Alumni Association. We're going to hear Advaita Nair speak about her challenges. But how many Falguni Nairs do we have? And I was reading some statistics again, over 80 unicorns in India. There's just one where a woman has a leadership decision-making position, which is Falguni. So, so the point is that then what is it that is holding us back? So today's panel, to all of you, we have such eminent panelists and experienced panelists. My first question to you would be, and I'll start with you, Niharika ji, you have to leave also. And you are working in a very strong position as Vice Chancellor of the Delhi Skill Entrepreneurship University. I don't know if we had a university like this earlier. So my first question to you is, if I were an entrepreneur candidate in your university, what would be the advice you'll give me, 2 or 3 things, in terms of why should I even bother about becoming an entrepreneur? And what are the skills that I may need?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think the first and foremost thing is that every entrepreneur, in my mind, is a problem solver. There's a problem that has to be solved, which you simply can't not solve it. So once you have that, then it doesn't matter, whether you will make money or not and all of that. That will happen anyway, or may not happen. You could fail. But the fact is that are you willing to structure, are you willing to look at a problem, and are you willing to solve it? I think the one thing that happens with a lot of women, and I have been studying women entrepreneurship for some time, a lot of times, even though we do have women entrepreneurs, whether it is micro, small, medium, large, doesn't matter. The numbers are minuscule, and if we have time, I'll show you some of those numbers. The numbers are minuscule, but a large number of women actually sell one of their skills to make a livelihood. They're not really so that's typically the model of livelihood. I know craft, I know silai, I know making achar, I know making papad. I'm going to use that to create a livelihood for me. Nothing wrong with it. But that is simply, that's really not entrepreneurship. I think if you look at the larger and the other, the high value, high impact entrepreneurs, their skill is that they're able to put people and resources together to solve a problem. And that problem may not be what they have a skill in, but they have the skill to put all of that together to be able to do that. So one of the things I would first tell my student is, what are you trying to solve for? That's the first thing I would say. And the second thing I would say is, are you willing to take a risk? Are you willing? And that risk doesn't mean, jumping off a cliff, but, and maybe I should correct myself, are you willing to be okay with uncertainty? That is very important, because then there's a difference between risk and uncertainty. And I think it's not about risk taking, it's about my comfort and my ability to deal with uncertainty, because future is unknown to all of us, but am I willing to use myself, my resources, my network to actually shape the future in the way I want to? If I can do these 2 things, then I could possibly be an entrepreneur, is what I would say.
Just one more corollary to what you just said. if it's a male candidate and a female candidate, because we have a gender sensitive panel here, what would be the difference in the answers you'll get?
Well, in our research that we have been doing, and we've been doing some very fairly good amount of research on, why there are such few women startups and why there's so few women in the entrepreneur space. The literature and the narrative always says there's something wrong with the woman. She doesn't present well. She's not passionate enough. She's not willing to take a risk. She's not taking leadership. I don't think women are deficient. I think there is something else that's happening. And that is what is happening in the entire ecosystem. So we have looked at how, I'll come to my answer, but I want to do it in this way. So we've looked at how investors respond when there are women pitches that are being made, right? And some of you have been watching Shark Tank. I'll give a couple of examples that I'm sure you're all aware of, but I don't even want to go there. I'll talk about something very interesting. So what we are noticing, and we're observing pitches, we're doing experiments and so on and so forth, and what we're finding is that while there is no real difference in who will be looked up for funding, but the kind of deal that is offered to a woman is very different from the kind of deal that is offered to a man. Yeah, the kind of questions that are asked to a man are very different from the questions that are asked to a woman. So, for example, we were observing a craft accelerator. People this was a craft accelerator, and there were 10 teams that had bubbled up, and these women. So there were all women group, there were women group, and there were all male group. So there was this one women group which was doing some kind of a sari. I won't mention it because then you would know who I'm talking about. Some kind of saris, and these were women in their 50s. Yeah, and they'd run this business for the last 8 years. They knew what they were doing. The investors sat there, and you will not believe this is what they said. They said, "Do you have a son?" Ladka hai? So this woman said, "Yes, I have a son. He's doing his PhD in physics." The whole conversation went into, "Please convince your son to come and run the business." And what was very amazing was that these women did not respond back. To my mind, why are we having this conversation, right? The second, and I'm just giving you some examples, there was another thing that happened was where in the same craft accelerator, we're again observing. So there was this guy who had a good presentation. He was doing some kind of chappals and so on and so forth. So the whole conversation was, "Oh, you're from Bombay, I'm from Bombay. We went to the same school. It's very nice. We'll meet in the soda wala in Bandra." And there was no conversation on the business. There was no and the investor had already made their mind कि इसको तो पैसा लगा देंगे, because that guy was very suave, right? I have nothing wrong. I have nothing against him. But the fact is that there was no conversation on business and so on and so forth. So I would not give advice to the women or the men. I would say, can we get the investors to look at their own biases? Can we look at them as to how they look at it? Women are not the problem. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Excellent. So I'll come to questions, but we have, this was exactly the reason I was introspecting with you. And I'll give you a very small example here because I work in health sector. And when COVID happened, like the previous speaker, we were 24/7 working. We had war rooms. We had no PPEs. We had no masks. So there were a lot of women who found opportunities there, and they would approach me, for example. And I would immediately, delegate teams that, please look up this particular lady who's been working in cottage industry and can give us even, 1,000 masks for one of my hospitals. Everything was welcome. And some of these women came back to me and said, "We're not even getting time slots from your team." And this is such an inbuilt bias. Because they would say, "Ma'am, COVID है, उनके घर में COVID हो गया तो वो तो उसी दिन वहाँ hospital में खड़ी हो जाएंगी अपने बच्चों के साथ, तो mask कौन बनाएगा?" These kind of responses is what I was getting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of deep bias. And who else now here better to tell us about these biases? This was a question that I was going to ask one of you. Are you okay with staying on?
For another 5 minutes.
Okay, so but because you need to hear this response from none other but an entrepreneur herself. So Purva is here, and she has worked not only as a solopreneur setting up this amazing ed-fintech company, but she's also an Indian ambassador for Women in Tech, which is trying to promote women in a very prejudiced field of science, where we produce as India the largest number of researchers, but we don't give them jobs, women I'm talking of.
Yeah.
And yesterday at FICCI, we launched something called the WISE Council, where Minister Smriti Irani herself came, and she also pointed out the data that आपके 43% students हैं जो कि ladies हैं R&D में जो science courses कर रही हैं, but सिर्फ 14% researchers on job, and ये आपके पास भी आएगा question ITs. Why is it that there's such a big gap? So over to you, tell me really and tell us all, what were the real biases when you pitched for a growth startup or a seed feeding or investor or private equity that you thought you faced, and what would you advise women in general to change their pitches to?
Thank you for the wonderful question. I think I was listening to what you were saying, Niharika ji. There's so much relatability in terms of what you spoke and what I would feel in my journey. It's not a very old startup. We started in 2021 April to where we are. Yes, we're one of the Shark Tank portfolios. I can relate to the kind of deal or the kind of, the way they would receive women entrepreneurs, very different. There was a question, now there was a point which was raised on risk taking, if women would be willing to be taking those risks. Now, my understanding with most speakers who spoke today was speaking of women who are generally taking up careers or taking up entrepreneurship. Needless to say, it's an understated equation, but generally women are picking up or are promoted to pick up careers or sectors which are first less capital intensive. Secondly, are either of those spaces where, again, the model is such where it cannot become a sustainable, high commanding income area. In terms of, personal aspect of deciding to take up an area, for example, fintech, to be in the digital wallet space, even in terms of culture that comes in general, that we have to institutionally, I think, minimize, is of ensuring that risk-taking capacity can be appreciated for women. That sort of patience is there from home, from culture, from corporate. I left my job in London to be here to see if I could make a space or to innovate for the new generation which is coming up in India. My, I would say, feedback from my bosses in London was something which I probably would have not expected in India. They were very supportive. They said, you want to take a few years, you want to go ahead, do it. You're anyway most welcome to come back to London, start a career again if you'd like to. But we'd like to know what kind of potential you have in a developing country as India to understand what you could do in a developed country like UK. In terms of finding capital, in terms of, I've even written this on LinkedIn today, investor fit is something which is so important for startups to have. Structured capital is something that I think female entrepreneurs require, because this cash flow management is extremely critical to any business, right? If that capital is coming from a structured way, from a PE VC space, I think that would be of help, versus where my journey lies. I've been approached, thankfully with Shark Tank as well, by many investors to invest in Good Piggy, but mostly these are private people, and the kind of biases they bring on the table with respect to welcoming you to non-official setups versus, all sorts of things, especially being a young budding entrepreneur, it is quite difficult. It is quite disciplined, where you would like to complain that if there is dry powder available with funds, then why not have that mandated towards women? Or as a thesis, where most AIFs are getting set up in India, why not mandate that some sort of a thesis plan should be there in terms of ESG deployment, not just women deployment in per se, but have that broad I won't like to say reservation, but that thought put forward where that's encouraged or incentivized in particular.
Wonderful, Purva. We'll take this again with Sandeep. I have some questions for both of you, but because Niharika ji has to go, Niharika ji, from your university, would you be able to make some of these recommendations? And one very important recommendation which has emerged from what Purva is saying is it not incumbent for financial institutions also to have more women in leadership position to make that impact of credit flow? For example, SEBI, and I'm saying SEBI despite what happened with one of our women chairpersons, this has been blown over also because there's such few women. If it were a man, the matter would have died. So we now have a new chairperson, woman, incredible. And so the incredible part here is, can we also now get data? Can SEBI do an exercise going forward in differentiated data of credit given to women entrepreneurs. That will show us the proof of the pudding.
Absolutely.
So where do you see, for example, your university pitching in to make such policy recommendations or any other that comes to
Sure.
mind?
I think policy is a very important aspect because policy drives, lending, giving, and so on and so forth. So that we can do. I mean, I think policy is easy to, of course, one needs to do research and write the policy. But I think the difficult part is how do I break mindsets? Even in the board, if you look at the women on boards, right? I have been in that position where, I've been the one person on the board. And then we're looking for another person. And, somebody inevitably say, abhi ek woman to hai na. And these are large boards. These are not even small boards that I'm talking about, right? And it's like, and then of course there's this like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say this. But the fact is that that's the whole mindset, right? So my whole thing is we can do the policy. Policy can get done. But I think the more important thing is how do we actually start to work with the people to say, we need diversity. And, as Purva is rightly saying, I sit on an investment committee for a fund, and I see the process, what it takes for somebody to come to the IC. It's a very intimate, very, very in-depth process. And I think already that process is biased against women. I will not maybe go out for a drink. I will possibly not spend as many hours talking to you about my business and putting everything together. It's just a very, very difficult process. And I think unless the ICs, unless the management committee or the person who's managing the fund is aware of it and sensitive to it, we might just lose the women leads even before they come any further.
True.
So I think some work has to be done there. On the policy front, I think there's a lot of policies that need to be put in place. For example, one of my pet one is, is not about the high impact, high growth startups, but is on the smaller businesses, right? There is always this thing that if you don't want to grow your business, something's wrong with you. And I think that's also something where we come from a very elitist mindset that there's only one way of being. I think there is, and my metaphor is कि नींबू के पेड़ को अगर बहुत पानी देंगे तो वो बरगद नहीं बनेगा. So नींबू पेड़ is a नींबू पेड़ and a bargad is a bargad. And I think we have to treat them differently and work at them differently. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Professor Jain, that comes, the question that's coming to my mind as she was speaking is, you see the STEM as it has created a lot of difference between, that's an area where gender radar comes in immediately. And being with the Faculty of Management Studies at IIT, also I think you would probably be the best person to tell us how and why is it that when the digital has become a buzzword, the government, Lakshmi Puri has also mentioned, has done so much in terms of digital. COVID has completely transformed and digital is just, there's no business that doesn't have digital. How is it that we can now bring women, for example, more equipped into this space so that they can start, and most startups are coming up as digital and hybrids. What are your views in this regard? Do you see the scope of women expanding now in entrepreneurship and startups? What has been the experience of, I don't know if you have any incubators or accelerators of women?
See, I think we have to look at it from one perspective, and that is we are passing through a transition phase. Okay. Maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years back, it was totally a man's world. Okay, now we are passing through the transition, and the young generation which is coming up, they are entirely different set of people. There the difference is not so much whether it is the, like Dr. Niharika said, there is a, attitude. When a woman is there for funding or bank or any activity, now that is all declining in the next generation. Because it is actually the attitude. Attitude is most important.
What is that attitude?
Attitude,
towards
I am saying attitude is a word.
Yeah.
You see, just I take it entirely different format. A daughter-in-law is more troubled by mother-in-law rather than father-in-law.
Oh my God.
And husband. traditionally, there have been like, they have to be more kind. Everybody has to be kind. And everybody has to understand the reality. And the roles are changing. Women are going out for work. And, you are working, she's working. You are in a very important roles you are working. You left a job in London. My daughter is in London, but she is doing a different kind of job. So, that is what, since the generation is changing.
But
now,
Professor Jain, who will change the attitudes?
it is automatic. You don't have to make an
Purva,
effort.
do you think attitudinal change is
In
automatic?
next 30 years, next 20 years or 30 years, the entire
We'll
attitude
take
will change.
questions.
I will, I think,
We'll after this.
first of all, welcome or I think appreciate women making way for women. The way Vinita, Miss Sethi, Miss Bakshi have welcomed a young,
The work they are doing. We have seen so many budding startups which are coming up, getting on listed on the stock exchanges, but see the passion they have. I had a very short stint with Ola for 3 months after my superannuation that was there. I was able to match the speed there, but definitely they have a totally different mindset to work. An excellent organization which has been built up, but the kind of environment is there in a startup has to be matched with what the investors look at it. And definitely in the long term, you need a cash flow. So no idea will survive if you're not able to give in cash to the company, because you can't keep on burning for life. You can't keep your eyeballs, okay, I got so many people looking at me, but until unless you generate cash, you are not going to survive. So these things, if are implemented in the same fashion as to what a male and a female will do it, I don't see any reason why not a female startup should survive.
Very encouraging.
So that's the mindset which has come over ages in today's times. People start feeling it. And just give you a data on US, we have not talked about it. Just see the 28% of women are there in the boards. So entire boards, or you say the corporate world in 2021, 28% women are there. So they are reaching across heights. You have to. And another example of myself being not a selfish, but collaborating with Vinita for the last 4 years within the Aambra Foundation is another example that how we can leverage this and move forward. So it all happens. Times have changed, and I don't see a bias into this, and there should not be a bias. I'm a father of proud 2 daughters, and I'm fine with it because they are excelling in their own way, in their own field. They are professionals. So it's a mindset which, as to what Professor Jain was saying, I think attention, no, it's not attention. Change it if you perceive it, if you compete in the same fashion as to what a man, woman would do. I was lucky to be of Kalpana Chawla. She was my engineering classmate, the bravest woman we had. Unfortunately, we don't see her today to have seen her past, that what she had done in her life, but she was brave from day one in the college. So we have that respect, and that respect should inculcate for the futures to come and for everybody to succeed. Thank you.
What I meant by attitude.
Yes.
What I meant by attitude, like Kalpana Chawla. She had that attitude. All the women achievers. Look at it. The first Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. Not first Prime Minister. First woman Prime Minister in the world was in Sri Lanka. Sirima Bandaranaike, 1960s. Then Mrs. Indira Gandhi was there. Golda Meir in Israel. Okay, they had the determination to do something. Merkel in Germany, Chancellor. They are people who have done it. This Arunima Sinha, with the amputated leg, she scaled up Mount Everest and so many. It is basically the attitude, and they can do well in entrepreneurship or any field. There is, people say that they cannot do it. I don't agree with it. They can achieve everything, and and that attitude is changing now. What I meant by attitude is that it's changing now.
So with due respect, yes, Sandeep, and yes, Professor Jain, I think one has to have an attitude not to give in, but where I still feel we need more work to do is in creating a stakeholder collaboration. A woman's attitude is definitely very important, and I think there's no woman who would want to sit and take a back seat and say, no, I can't do it. But एक ecosystem, चाहे जैसे निहारिका जी ने कहा था, एक पॉलिसी सिस्टम का होना ज़रूरी है. आपने बोर्ड्स की बात करी. आई थिंक हमारी लेजिस्लेशन इन इंडिया हैज़ हेल्प्ड अस अ लॉट कि भाई इतने परसेंटेज विमेन आपको बोर्ड में लाने हैं. विमेन कांट बी जस्ट फ्रॉम योर फैमिली, दे ऑल्सो हैव टू बी अपस्किल्ड. अब जैसे हम डिजिटल इंडिया में मूव कर रहे हैं विमेन स्टार्टअप्स के लिए, देयर इज़ अ होल प्रोग्राम टू रीस्किल विमेन, टू प्रोएक्टिवली ऑल्सो पुल देम इन. सो आई थिंक women's own attitude, and women's leadership and decision making on the other side. मैं board में हूँ find के when I see there's another woman on the other side on a global board, I do see the equations changing when I ask for funds here or I question her on women related health issues. She immediately connects with me. So there is a level of empathy, there's a level of gender sensitivity that needs to be built in. But Vinita, if you allow me, I'd like to take a few questions that can be addressed to...
but first question is coming from me.
Sure. So please, we have, I think, time for at least 3 to 4 questions, starting with Vinita, and do name the panelist you would like to ask to. So Vinita, yours.
Collective esteemed panel, I have a question that, when we talk about entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem in India, I do understand that first the ecosystem, the social ecosystem needs to be conducive. Then only, women will get loans, women will get venture capitalists to trust in them, and whole lot of other things would follow. But first comes the general social system where families, parents trust their children, are ready to give them the opportunity. Then comes the workplace where they go out to work, and whole lot of other things. We've discussed them in a number of seminars. But today my question is a little different. My question is, what about creating an ecosystem for the safety of women who are also... They're also entrepreneurs. Supposing somebody invests 500 rupees capital and starts a business on a roadside, or is a small vendor, or somewhere in the rural parts of India, are they not entrepreneurs? They are. So the challenges which these small entrepreneurs face who are on the roadside. So, our research team has compiled a 1-minute story on that, and I would want you to see that story so that, I'll invite the comments of the esteemed panel that what needs to be done to take these small women entrepreneurs along in the process of democratization or the future vision of an India which is where women are prospering and doing well. So can we have that PPT? A video film rather, it's a documentary, 1-minute documentary film. So we made it on the streets of Delhi. So please, I would request,
Lower the light, please.
Yeah. Can you switch off the lights of the room? And it's made by our own interns and volunteers whom we mentor. So please give them a huge round of applause for making this documentary. These are students from Ambedkar College and MIT University.
हम बालों में हेयर बीडिंग करते हैं, एयरिंग बेचते हैं, यही काम करते हैं। दिल्ली में रह रहे हैं बेटा, 60-70 साल हो गए। बेटा ये दिल्ली हाट पे सीखा है हमने दूसरी लेडीज से, उनका सीख के फिर हम भी यहीं लगाने लगे। ये बेटा बहुत ज़्यादा परेशानी हुई है, बहुत परेशानी हुई है, राशन नहीं मिला है, घर में परेशानी हुई है, बच्चे नाती पोते छोटे-छोटे, बहुत परेशानी है, दुकानें नहीं लगी हमारी। था, वो किसी का पास किराया रखा था, रख के थोड़ा पैसा वैसा करके फिर सामान किन के लेता है, हम लोग खरीद करते हैं, खरीद करने के बाद वो फिर घर में बनाना पड़ता है, बनाने के बाद तो हम लोग जाता है, कलकत्ता में जाता है, वो हमारा होता है बंगाल में, जहाँ मेला होता है उसमें जाता है, जाके पूरा सामान लिख के बाद में सामान होता है। कभी उसका किस्मत अच्छा रहता है, उस टाइम तो हमारा बहुत दिक्कत हुआ था। उस टाइम में दिल्ली में ही था, कोई तो मदद करता भी नहीं, क्या करेगा वो 2 किलो 3 किलो चावल देता है, कोई पैसा दे के मदद नहीं करता। इन जैसे मांगा था, उस टाइम कोई देने नहीं चाहता था। वो हस्बैंड छोड़ के चला गया, 2 बच्चा है, वो लोग भी काम करता है, हमारा साथ भी करता है।
trying to ask or say to this esteemed panelists, here we saw the story of two women, and they both began with a very, very marginal capital. One started, say, about 10 years ago, and the other one also started around the same time. The first story which we saw, she invested capital to make braids. You know, she used to braid men and women, and she couldn't find enough customers. So she graduated to this earrings business because they get supplied easily on the pavements of Delhi, and they don't have to run to stock or to procure these stock. So she had a different kind of challenge. Like she wanted to do something else, but then, you know, money is a very important factor, and went on to do something else. And the other story is of a woman who sells bags on the pavements, and some NGO was taking supplies from her, and that was during the extreme years of COVID, and she kept on giving them, bags. And because she lacked financial and legal literacy, so she did not make a document with them. So they took bags from her but never paid her money. So, you know, that is how the victimization happens from smallest to the biggest level of entrepreneurs. So so how can we tackle this? Is it attitude, or is it policy, or is it just how in our system we bring about protection for such women, safety for such women?
I'd love to share my experience on this. I am part of Women in Tech, the India chapter. Vinita ji, Miss Sethi is also in the board of Women in Tech in India. We have very similar feedback from the ground, right? I'm working at the moment with Winners Trust, where at least as part of, you know, adopting one village or a rural urban village, have been able to go there, document in a similar manner the situation of the pandemic, put out a pandemic report, had that report being assessed by the World Bank, who was deploying funds here to see if that is actually true on the grassroots level. For many women, and like, you know, for this lady's example, she understood the concept of pivoting. If a business does not work, pivoting, right? So,
right.
Mr. Sandeep was pointing out merit, you know, women moving forward based on merit. I think any entrepreneur who has a spirit will understand the basics of business, would understand where the leakages are, would like to plug that in, because he's the one who's taking, or he or she is the one who's taking the most risk when it comes to time and effort in that situation. So about inclusion, about small businesses, today I think in terms of MSME businesses, I was reading in the paper, 20% are women-led. And Grant Thornton, I used to work for Grant Thornton myself in India, is pointing out realistically it's only 5%, because, you know, we have concessions, people are smart to put in the women, faces, put up that cover or that packaging in terms of business.
Yes.
And leverage those schemes. In terms of reality, I think it's a small handful, and in terms of inclusion, there's enough work that has to be done, but work which is extremely transparent in terms of it reaching people, and as well as reporting it on the top level, because from top-down approach, there is that intention, but unfortunately when we look bottom up, there is that loss in terms of either reach or in terms of that inclusion that happens. So I think it has to be very much hand in hand, and that gap has to be, or that reporting gap has to be definitely shortened and bridged.
And Professor Jain and Sandeep, I hope you agree, because I feel in such cases where you talk of financial, the party doesn't really fulfill or honors the contract, we have to have a framework. You know, I mean, litigation takes forever. These are very poor women. They're not going to really drag the parties for litigation. So you need an institutional framework to address this kind of problem. Also, upskilling of these women so that they get the contract signed. You know, some fear of God has to be put into the other party. So that's what I meant, that, you know, we need to have some kind of a social insurance coverage for them. So that's where policy comes
Vinita,
in.
that is one part of it, to have a social coverage. But again, you come back to the basic question of the mindset.
Safety
the
net.
NGO which was running that piece and which was picking up bags, the mindset of those people behind that NGO is very important.
Sure.
So that also needs to be tackled, apart from giving safety, security, risk, insurance and coverage. But the mindset of those kind of people who are managing these or who are doing these activities also needs to be coached, trained and said that this is something which is building your ecosystem. You can't just run away like this.
That's
So
what
that's
I meant
also very
by
important.
skilling. So the other side of the fence has to be, and if there were more women probably there, they could have also understood, you know, the NGO that was speaking. So I think there's a whole due diligence that needs to be done in this informal sector. Any questions from? Yeah, sure.
I would like to just add that if women are educated, this was a case of when they were not educated. If they're educated, they are empowered, they feel empowered, and they have determination, then all these things will not happen. And that is what I said in the beginning, the transition. You know, in 3 generations, like my parents were of different generation, I am of different generation, my children are of different generation. Okay, so this is changing. And I think these problems will automatically get overcome in next 30 or 40 years.
That is why in 2022, I think we are looking into this, that legal and financial literacy for the women on streets,
Yes.
who do small businesses on streets with a capital of say 500 rupees, 1000 rupees, 2000 rupees, and do not know anything about the way forward. They invest everything they have in that small business with 5000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, and then somebody dupes them like this, whether it's an whoever, you know, we are all parts of the system, right from top to bottom. So women get victimized in so many ways. And today is not only a day for celebration, it is also exploring and introspecting into our system that why this continues to happen to women. Sorry if I'm a little emotional about this.
Then otherwise, Vinita?
Yeah, any questions from the audience, we're very happy to take.
I'll just tell see, there is only one woman who got a Nobel Prize for Physics and Nobel Prize for Chemistry. No man ever got it.
Madam Curie.
Okay, Marie Curie. So नहीं मतलब है कि जो achievers जो है ना उनके मतलब है कि because
But you can't deny Professor Jain कि यहाँ पे gender bias नहीं है. Gender bias तो बहुत ही है ना. Exactly. Absolutely. 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 Given. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly, Dr. Seema.
And also let me tell you that from adversity comes an opportunity for women also. And I have a colleague, I'm working very closely with her in FICCI's Greater 50, Chetna ji of Mandeshi Bank. Unki apni story yahi thi. When she got married in a rural setting, the house didn't even have toilets. So she protested. She said, "मैं तो जाऊंगी नहीं अपने ससुराल जब तक यहाँ पे bathroom नहीं बनेगा." Today she's gone up to set up Mandeshi Bank for microcredit for women, and she's supporting women enterprises. The biggest obstacle according to her is स्त्रियों के नाम पे property नहीं होती.
Exactly.
आप तो informal sector की बात कर रही हूँ, मैं तो गांव की बात कर रही हूँ, जहाँ पे ladies, हमने कितना सुना था कि you know sundry jobs come to women, but women who even want to set up small micro units, how do they get loans? These are structural systemic problems. It's not attitude. This is where the government has to move in, policy has to move in, microfinance has to move in to ensure that there has to be some mechanism of disbursing those 10,000 rupees to a woman in her name. SEBI has to make data.
And ensuring it becomes a capital investment.
And it becomes a capital investment. So, you know, and that is what
self-help groups.
Sorry, आप बताएं कुसुम जी.
Yes.
So बांग्लादेश में ग्रामीण बैंक ने भी माइक्रो फाइनेंस किया है, तो आप मंदेशी का भी काम देखें. ऐसी बहुत है. संपर्क हमारी अपनी स्मिता प्रेमचंद्र has created self-help groups, and they're giving the imparting loans, microfinance loans to women.
I think SIDBI has also done some work in that direction.
Would you like to share something?
Yes, you must.
आप बताएं कुछ.
So I also want to introduce Mr. Surendra Shrivastava, who has joined our executive board this year.
SIDBI has been one of the pioneering institute in the country for microfinance. They started doing microfinance since 1994, and formally they set up a department within SIDBI in 1998. So nobody was lending to MFIs. The MFI word was not there when SIDBI started lending, and today we have around 3 crore women beneficiaries, and the repayment rates by them are 96% or so. And the names you mentioned, Smita Premchandar, Mandeshi Mahila Bank, Chetna Gala Sena, they all are SIDBI's funding organizations.
Right.
And women are doing fantastic work in microfinance. And then now the stage has come when they are being taken to the vertical upgradation to the next level in terms of formally setting up micro units by them.
I would say you have supported them so much that women actually in rural sector are more empowered today than in our tier C.
I've been fortunate, madam, to associate with microcredit functioning of SIDBI for last 2 decades. Ever since SIDBI was doing microcredit, I have been doing microcredit there and decided SIDBI's policy also there. So
we need more SIDBIs for...
We need more people like you who have that vision of development sector.
Also for growth finance for people like Purva, the young
Yeah.
startups who need to grow further.
So there are many schemes actually. Startup scheme is there in SIDBI, venture capital is there. And as Mr. Jain has said, you know, within our families you would agree there are situations when, you know, when a new daughter, a new girl is born, that disappointment comes from ladies first. I'm sorry to say.
Women, please change your attitude.
Women,
कि
change
ऐसा
yourself.
क्यों हो गया? And then the argument comes
women.
is that the argument they give is that the woman knows the sufferings she has to take through the journey. Partially may be correct, but that doesn't mean that disappointment should be there.
Exactly.
You should allow her to come in this world and make her strong to face that journey.
Absolutely.
So that mindset has come from within. Actually. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Purva, you would like to have something? Yes.
We are all like those people, right? Our mother, my mother was super disappointed when I was born as a girl. She said, "Oh my God, one more, and she's going to go through so much hell." But I like to say I'm super proud, and she wherever she is, she's no more. But she must be super proud of me because of what I've achieved today. It's just because, yeah, there is initial disappointment, but then they make you so super strong that I think we become super achievers.
वो कहते हैं ना
So different. Yes. 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 Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Purva, you have something to add to, we had a topic which is very close to your heart today. Bhuvna, you have something to add? We had this topic very close to your heart today. Yes. Mike,
told
please.
that she has to handle 2 men's job. Then she said it's half day's work. Agreed.
So one thing from SIDBI you said, but it's very evident nowadays, it's just preempting. A lot of election results are coming, and if you see the analysis, how BJP is winning, you know the reason why they are winning. So that's a very powerful statement which is going to come across very well, that women voted for BJP in the rural areas because they have been empowered a lot in many areas. So that's a very strong point which is coming out of this elections.
So I think there is that emphasis where even as a person who's standing in the journey or in the pipeline, the fact that if it is coming structurally, it's coming institutionally, it's much easier and much I would say accepted by a woman because it's easier to flow with versus, like for example, even in my case, to be speaking to individual investors or private funders, it's a whole lot of a complication, right? So I think institutionally, if there's a structure which comes up, even in terms of, like I mentioned before, dry powder with funds, or as part of investment thesis with PE or VC players, or that for that matter, SIDBI or other institutions that are there, I think it would really save women a lot of harassment, a lot of unnecessary, right, left and center, all of the nonsense they have to deal with will become so much smooth and will lead to a better motivated, woman.
Totally agree.
Very well
And
said, Purva. Very well said.
you definitely need an institutional process. You can't leave it to whims and fancies of who's sitting on the other side of the board, and every time you need to explain. And it's no brainer. Women coming into entrepreneurship is a win-win for everybody. They'll create more jobs, there'll be more empathy, there'll be, I'm not saying good or bad decisions, but like somebody said, yin and yang would be balanced. The masculine and feminine side of decision making would be balanced. And I leave it to Vinita and Aambra Foundation next year to tell us how they have proceeded this year with making that change. And thank you to this eminent panel, which I'm sure will contribute to Aambra's efforts.
Thank you,
everybody.
Jen. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank Thank you, Purva. Thank you so much for this very interesting, insightful panel discussion. Momentous.
Thank you, Professor Jain. We must meet again.
Thank you so much for such an insightful discussion. It's interesting to have a point of view from the audiences as well. That makes a discussion more inclusive. Just a small note of appreciation from all of us here to our panelists.
Moderator, madam, thank you. To the youngest woman on the panel. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you. Girl rising.
Whoa.
We need more such women. Women in tech and women startups.
More power to our pride.
Yes. I say more so because my daughter is an engineer and she also, like very few women engineers even in our class. Thank you so much.
I don't know what quiz Rashmi ji wanted to do, but you know, मेरे दिमाग में सुकत आ रहा था एक बड़ा मजेदार सिलसिला है. Vinita, do I have your permission to just ask one question of the panel?
Absolutely.
So ये medical related है, quiz है. So एक father and उनका बेटा एक car accident में they got involved and father had to rush the son immediately to the emergency. If you know the answer, don't say. Even my doctors couldn't answer it properly, so they had to rush the son into an emergency. The father was also injured, so he was getting treatment elsewhere. And achanak, you know, the nurse came running to the father and said, "Usko to OT में ले जा रहे हैं, and immediately आप उधर आइए, OT में." So the father said कि मैं आ रहा हूँ. The moment the father was going, there was another, you know, few doctors and nurses also running to the OT, and the surgeon who walked in, totally, you know, जैसे mask वगैरह पहन के COVID का time था, and the surgeon shouted after seeing the child, "Oh, this is my son." So who was the surgeon? Father to bahar tha. Thank God you said the mother, but you know, a year ago when we asked this question, people were saying the grandfather, some uncles. Nobody said mother, because the image of a medical surgeon is always a male.
Yeah.
Similarly for a pilot, you know, they always think of a male as a pilot. So I think Rashmi के जो quiz था ना, वो कुछ उसी
I
lines पे
think
था.
इस समय तो Air India में ज़्यादा women pilots हैं,
Yeah,
more than men
captains
pilots.
as
So
well.
many captains, and even then, we are not able to break the perceptions.
Do you want us to take this? or
Group
Picture.
photograph. No, please take it. Why leave it? Come, please come.
ये खड़े हो जाते हैं, I think आप- You're standing between the cultural performance and the
Yes.
audience.
Thank you so much. And can I request the IIC team to kindly clear the stage while we prepare for our next interesting part of the evening. All right, before we move on to our next activity for the evening, there are just few thoughts that I want to share with all of you. कविताएं लिखना थोड़ा बहुत शौक रहा है, लेकिन यहाँ इंटरेस्टिंग इन कॉन्वर्सेशन को सुनने के बाद, पैनलिस्ट को सुनने के बाद कुछ लाइनें यहीं बैठे बैठे लिखी हैं, but they are not for the women here, they are for all the men including myself. So I want to address all the men here and say, किसने दिया ये हक तुम्हें, किसने दिया ये हक तुम्हें कि तुम लो उनके लिए फैसले, किसने दिया ये हक तुम्हें कि तुम लो उनके लिए फैसले, क्यों नहीं बदल सकते ये सोच जिसे लेकर अब तक तुम चले, क्यों उसे जरूरत है तुम्हारी इजाजत की, क्यों उसे जरूरत है तुम्हारी इजाजत की, जरूरत तुम्हें है उसके जैसी सलाहियत की, क्यों नहीं मान सके अब तक कि वो हर लिहाज से बराबर है तुम्हारे, क्यों नहीं मान सके अब तक कि वो हर लिहाज से बराबर है तुम्हारे, क्यों उसे तुम्हारे नाम से जाना जाए, क्यों उसे तुमसे अलग माना जाए, न जाने किस ख्याल में पीढ़ियों से गुम हो, ये बात जान लो वो है तो तुम हो, ये बात जान लो कि वो है तो तुम हो. Thank you. And meanwhile, while they clear the stage, may I please invite for the next session from the Art of Living, a brief meditation session by Atika Dhandia. Do we have Atika here? Hi, please come. Can we have the handheld mic, please? Handheld mic.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here, and I'm feeling so bad that I came late because this last 20 minutes which I got here was so enlightening. Next time when you invite me, I'll come on time. It was really, really enlightening to know what you guys were discussing, and I would love to contribute in this field. Art of Living is already doing so much here. Well, but today I'm here for another cause. So many ideas that you have all been listening to have been accumulating inside you. You can absorb it better if you rest your mind. Yeah? So the next 5 to 6 minutes, we are just going to experience a guided meditation. Till they are getting this off, I'll give you 2 tips today, which you can take back home and practice on your own whenever you are meditating. Okay, they're very simple tips. So number 1, always remember that every night when you go to sleep, you are resting the body. You're not resting the mind. All right? So meditation is nothing but resting the mind. Okay? And for whatever number of minutes that you want to meditate, 3 things you should remember. Number 1, for the next few seconds, for the next few minutes, for the next half an hour, or whatever time, I want nothing. Okay? For the next few minutes, I do nothing. I will do nothing for the next few minutes. Yeah? And the third one, for the next few minutes, I am nothing. मैं कुछ भी नहीं हूँ. So पहला, मुझे कुछ नहीं चाहिए. दूसरा, मुझे कुछ नहीं करना है. तीसरा, मैं कुछ भी नहीं हूँ. For the next few minutes. वापस दोबारा ले सकते हैं आंखें खुलने के बाद सब कुछ. Yeah. So this is one thing, and I know all of us these days today want to learn how to meditate, and we get on to guided meditations, go on to YouTube channels and all that stuff. So next tip I'm giving you for all that. So whenever you go on to any guided meditation where somebody is guiding you into a meditation, don't listen to it intently. दिमाग एकदम लगा के नहीं सुनना है. Okay? So moment you do that, you are kind of engaging your mind, which you want to rest. Are you getting it? Yeah? So do not listen to my instructions today intently. Just let them fall on your ears, just like the way you listen to music. Got it? Yes? Wonderful. Great. And my voice is very melodious. You agree with that? Yes. Please dim the lights, please. Can I have a chair, please? Can I have a chair? All right. Just sit comfortably and easily. Aram se baith. Thank you so much. Just we can dim the lights. So always remember there's a rule in nature that opposite values are complementary. है ना? दिन का कोई अस्तित्व नहीं है अगर रात नहीं होती. पीक तभी है बिकॉज वैली है. या उसी तरीके से अगर रेस्ट में जाना है तो डायनामिक एक्टिविटी बहुत ज़रूरी है और आप लोग एक्स्ट्रा करते हो. तो ये बहुत अच्छी बात है. इसी कारण से आप डीप रेस्ट में भी जा सकते हो. या लेकिन क्योंकि हम अभी बहुत देर से सुन रहे थे, हम अभी क्या करेंगे? We are just going to take our hands like this to it and just shirk. Okay, everybody, close your eyes. आंखें बंद कर ले and just shirk your hands, both your hands. Rest your feet on the ground. Do not cross your legs. If you can take off your glasses, take off your glasses and shirk your hands as if you're shirking away all your worries. एक हाथ थोड़ा ज़्यादा भारी लग सकता है और दूसरा हल्का, तो इसको कंटिन्यू करें जब तक कि दोनों इक्वल ना हो जाएं. I'll tell you why this happens after the meditation. Continue till it becomes equal. Close your eyes and do it. Close your eyes and do it. And once they are of equal intensity, you can bring both your hands down, rest them on your lap, open towards the sky. गोद में रख लें, आंखें बंद ही रखें, relax your body, see if you want to take a back rest. Become aware of your breath. Every ingoing breath is energizing you, and every outgoing breath is relaxing you more and more. हर अंदर जाती हुई सांस शरीर को ऊर्जा दे रही है और हर बाहर आती हुई सांस शरीर को विश्राम दे रही है. Without moving, relax your feet. Relax your right leg. Relax your left leg. Relax your abdomen. नाभि से निचले हिस्से को विश्राम दें. Relax your stomach area and chest. Relax your right shoulder and right arm. दाहिना कंधा और दाहिनी भुजा विश्राम दें. Left shoulder and left arm. Relax your neck muscles. Relax all your facial muscles. चेहरे की सभी मांसपेशियों को विश्राम दें. Relax your cheeks, your lips, your eyes, your eyebrows, forehead, the top of your head. the back of your neck, your entire spinal column. Relax your entire body, your entire body, your entire body. Take a deep breath in and breathe out with a ha sound from the mouth. Ha. Take another deep breath in and breathe out with a ha sound. Become aware of your thoughts, if any. Good thoughts, bad thoughts, whatever thoughts are coming, let them come. Do not resist any thought. अपने विचारों के प्रति सजग हो जाएं, जैसे भी विचार आ रहे हों। अच्छे विचार, बुरे विचार, रोके नहीं। I'm in harmony with my thoughts right now. Take another deep breath in and breathe out. Become aware of your feelings. Feeling of pain or pleasure, comfort or discomfort. सुखद या दुखद, जैसी भी संवेदना हो, उसके प्रति सजग हो जाएं। Take another deep breath in and breathe out. For a few moments, I want nothing. For a few moments, I do nothing. For a few moments, I am nothing. Drop all efforts, mental and physical. मानसिक और शारीरिक सभी चेष्टाएं छोड़ दें. And repose in the self. पूरी तरीके से विश्राम करें. Take another deep breath in and breathe out. Become aware of your feelings once again. Become aware of your thoughts once again, if any. Take another deep breath in and breathing out, becoming aware of your body and surroundings. शरीर और परिसर के प्रति सजग होते हुए very slowly and gradually, whenever you feel complete, taking your time, you may open your eyes. Take your time, do not be in a hurry. समय लेते हुए अपना धीरे धीरे आंखें खोल सकते हैं. Take your time. So those of you who are yawning, I take it as a compliment. Good morning, everyone. How are you feeling? How's it? Yeah? Good? Yes? Yeah. Actually, this is a 20-minute meditation, but I kind of, you know. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Atika ji, for such a spellbounding session. मैं खड़े-खड़े meditation कर रहा था वहाँ पे. But before you leave, we have a small memento from our side. All right, so let's come back to the normal world, real world. And let's... अभी तो okay. Okay, okay, okay. So up next we have one of the oldest and the most beautiful dance forms that India has produced. We have a dancing duo here who are going to present a piece of what they call Shakti Shambhavi Shubhakari. So it's a Bharatnatyam performance by artists Bhadra Sinha and Gayatri Sharma. Just to tell you about both of them, Bhadra is a trained classical dancer having an experience of over
Manisha
2 decades in this field of art. She pursues dance out of a passion for creative pursuit and desire to use this medium for spreading social messages. A media professional, Bhadra has kept dance close to her heart. For her, it is a powerful tool to explore India's rich cultural heritage and present it before the modern audience. We also have Gayatri Sharma with us. Gayatri discovered her passion for dancing at an early stage and trained in Bharatnatyam for over 15 years under Guru V. Krishnamurti from the Kalakshetra School of Dance. She has several public performances to her credit, including national and international platforms. Gayatri is also a respected leader in communications and CSR. With 2 decades experience working in the corporate sector, she is a diversity and inclusion champion. She is a mother of 2 and continues to be an active performance artist in Bharatnatyam and believes that women can achieve everything they believe in. I have a small piece about the dance here with me, but I want both of them to please come and explain what the dance is all about to all of us.
Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank Aambra Foundation and Vinita ji for continuing to invite us and giving us an opportunity to be associated with She Speaks and the foundation. It's always a privilege for us to create a special thematic piece for this conference, and this year the theme of our presentation is Shakti Shambhavi, Shubhakari. Shakti literally means energy, ability, strength, capability, power, effort. She is primordial as a cosmic energy, but she's also a dynamic force that moves through the universe and indeed moves the universe. For us, Shakti is the epitome of beauty and grace, but she is also Shubhakari, the harbinger of good fortune. She is also, as a couple of you were talking about before, she is Bhayadaruni, or she is the one, the mother, who takes away all fears of her children. She is soft and gentle, but she can be fierce and ferocious. She is light, but she can also be darkness. She is ever present, unwavering, eternal, yet ever changing. She creates, nourishes, and sustains, but she also protects and destroys. And this is what we would like to depict in our representation of Shakti, Shambhavi, Shubhakari today. And we will begin with a piece of contemporary poetry by Manisha, and follow that with a very special piece which has been composed by Ghatam Karthikji and choreographed by Dr. Ratish Babu. Bhadra and I are both really excited to present this to all of you today, and we hope that you will like it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
मनीषा की कविता कच्ची मिट्टी। मुझे जब भी मिलना, अपने बनाए सांचे तोड़ के मिलना, मैं उनमें नहीं ढलूंगी, कोशिश भी मत करना। अपनी कल्पनाओं को आकार देने की आंच पर तो रखना भी मत, चटक जाऊंगी। अनगढ़ ही रहना है मुझे, गीली ही रहने दो मेरी मिट्टी। रौंदा हुआ छोड़ दो, घूमने दो चाक। मैं अपना आकार खुद गढ़ूंगी। कच्चा ही रहना है मुझे, अनगढ़ ही रहना है मुझे।
सरसिजलोचनी चारुकेसी सरसिजलोचनी चरणं शरणं चरणं भवदारिणी चारुकेसी सरसिजलोचनी ह्रीङ्कार बीजाक्षररूपिणी ह्रीङ्कार बीजाक्षररूपिणी कामाक्षि कौमारि कात्यायनी कामाक्षि कौमारि कात्यायनी मा काळि मदगमनी मङ्गलप्रदायिनी मा काळि मदगमनी मङ्गलप्रदायिनी पञ्चमी पराशक्ति परब्रह्मरूपिणी पञ्चमी पराशक्ति परब्रह्मरूपिणी दानवभञ्जनी दाक्षायणी दानवभञ्जनी दाक्षायणी निरहङ्कारी नित्यनिरञ्जनी निरहङ्कारी नित्यनिरञ्जनी शर्वाणि शर्वाणि शातोदरी सर्वेश्वरी सदा मुदा नादस्वरूपिणी शर्वाणि शातोदरी सर्वेश्वरी सदा मुदा नादस्वरूपिणी शङ्करि शाम्भवी चान्द्रकलाधरी सावित्री गायत्री शमनोहरि श्रीभुवनेश्वरि गौरि कृपाकरि ज्ञानप्रसादिनि शरणं शिवे श्रीकरि शुभकरि लयकरि ईश्वरि वैकरि वैष्णवि वाद्यविनोदिनि जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि राजराजेश्वरि पालय माम् ऐगिरि नन्दिनि नन्दितमेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दिनुते गिरिवरविल्य शिरोधिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति गन्धकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते शङ्करि शाम्भवि चन्द्रकलाधरि सावित्री गायत्री शमनोहरि श्रीभुवनेश्वरि गौरि कृपाकरि ज्ञानप्रसादिनि शरणं शिवे चारुकेसी सरसिजलोचनी
आ जाएंगे
Dr. Seema, all the ladies could have joined. Abha, you could have come. हम चले जाते हैं फिर second round में. Naina, please come. Sunita is also sitting. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sir, we would like, sir. Thank you so much.
हम तीनों के लिए
Can you just take a picture for us? Okay, great.
she composed the poetry.
No. She's a designer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Poetry.
All right, and then this is the last section of the evening, and what a better way to sum up this beautiful evening by some beautiful poetry. So we have three poetesses here to entertain us and to inspire us. Please welcome our first poetess of the evening, Ms. Mamta Kiran. Mamta Kiran ji के बारे में थोड़ी सी बातें मैं बता दूं. She is a very eminent poet, and she's done the poetry recitation in many countries as representative Indian poet. She's won many awards, but the most prestigious ones has to be Mahadevi Verma Samman from the UP government. She's participated in a lot of national and international literature festivals. She is the ex-feature editor of a national daily, and she is a well-known broadcaster and newscaster. Please welcome Mamta Kiran.
थैंक यू विनीता जी. हाँ, इधर रही. तो सबसे पहले तो आम्ब्रा फाउंडेशन और विनीता जी को और उनकी पूरी टीम को मैं बहुत बहुत बधाई देती हूँ. आज अंतर्राष्ट्रीय महिला दिवस पर इतना जो इसको कहते हैं कॉम्पैक्ट प्रोग्राम, जहाँ पर हमने मेडिटेशन भी किया, डिस्कशंस भी हुए और नृत्य भी हुआ, और अब पोइट्री की बारी है. और बहुत बहुत आप सभी को बधाई देती हूँ. और सीधे कविता पर आती हूँ क्योंकि समय कम है. और सबसे पहले एक कविता रखती हूँ आप सबके बीच में. भारतीय स्त्री का जो जीवन है, और भारतीय स्त्री क्या बल्कि पूरी दुनिया की ही महिलाओं का जो जीवन है, वो एक नदी के माध्यम से मैं रख रही हूँ. और उसके बाद एक गज़ल के कुछ शेर पढ़ूँगी. तो सबसे पहले कविता पढ़ती हूँ और सुनिएगा कि स्त्री झांकती है नदी में, निहारती है अपना चेहरा, संवारती है माथे की टिकुली, होठों की लाली, मांग का सिंदूर, हाथों की चूड़ियाँ. भर जाती है रौब से मांगती है आशीष नदी से, सदा बनी रहे सुहागन, अपने अंतिम समय अपने सागर के हाथों ही विलीन हो उसका समूचा अस्तित्व इस नदी में. स्त्री मांगती है नदी से अनवरत चलने का गुण, कि स्त्री मांगती है नदी से अनवरत चलने का गुण, पार करना चाहती है तमाम बाधाओं को, पहुंचना चाहती है अपने गंतव्य तक. स्त्री मांगती है नदी से सभ्यता के गुण, कि स्त्री मांगती है नदी से सभ्यता के गुण, वो सभ्यता जो उसके किनारे जन्मी, पली, बढ़ी और जीवित रही. स्त्री जलाती है दीप आस्था के, कि स्त्री जलाती है दीप आस्था के, नदी में प्रवाहित करती है मंगल कामना सबके लिए, और अपने लिए मांगती है सिर्फ नदी होना, और अपने लिए मांगती है सिर्फ नदी होना. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. और एक गज़ल के 3-4 कुछ शेर पढ़ती हूँ. और देखिए कि तमाम सारी यहाँ पर बातें हुई, और स्त्री ने जो है अपनी इच्छा शक्ति से, अपनी ज़िद से तमाम बाधाओं को पूरा किया है, पार किया है, और आज ज़मीन से लेकर के आसमान तक कोई ऐसा क्षेत्र नहीं है जहाँ पर वो अपना परचम न फहरा रही हों। तो यहीं से इस गज़ल का मतलब इस तरह से कि हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को वो जैसे कुंदन बना रही है, हर एक मुश्किल में तप के जैसे वो खुद को कुंदन बना रही है, नदी के जैसे बना के रास्ता, नदी के जैसे बना के रास्ता, मुकाम अपना वो पा रही है, हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को। और देखिए शेर सुनिएगा कि न माँ पिता पर है बोझ अब वो हुआ उलट है अब इसके बिल्कुल, न माँ पिता पर है बोझ अब वो हुआ उलट है अब इसके बिल्कुल, सहारा बन के पिता माँ का वो बोझ घर का उठा रही है। जी बहुत शुक्रिया कि सहारा बन के पिता माँ का वो बोझ घर का उठा रही है, हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को। और शेर सुनिए कि नहीं इदारा कोई भी ऐसा जहाँ न उसने हुनर दिखाया, नहीं इदारा कोई भी ऐसा जहाँ न उसने हुनर दिखाया, ज़मीं से लेकर वो आसमां तक कमाल अपना दिखा रही है, हर एक। तालियां आप लोग बजा रहे तो सारे लोग बजा दीजिए मिल करके एक बार, और लगे कि हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय महिला दिवस यहाँ मना रहे हैं और आप ही की बात हम कर रहे हैं। जी कि हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को। और शेर सुनिए कि वो घर की देहरी में कैद दासी थी आंसुओं से भरी जो बदरी, कि वो घर की देहरी में कैद दासी थी आंसुओं से भरी जो बदरी, खड़ी सफलता की मंजिलों पे वो शान से मुस्कुरा रही है। जी हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को। और पढ़ती हूँ, बहुत सारे नाम यहाँ लिए गए, मैं भी कुछ नाम लेती हूँ कि सुनीता विलियम या कल्पना हो, सुनीता विलियम या कल्पना हो, गगन पे उसका है नाम अंकित, कि सुनीता विलियम या कल्पना हो, गगन पे उसका है नाम अंकित, वो मैत्रेयी और गार्गी का ही काम आगे बढ़ा रही है, कि वो मैत्रेयी और गार्गी का ही काम आगे बढ़ा रही है, हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को। और देखिए आप तो ये भी है, सुनिएगा कि हवाई सेना की जंगजू हो, वो चाहे हो कोबरा कमांडो, हवाई सेना की जंगजू हो, वो चाहे हो कोबरा कमांडो, नहीं है कमतर किसी से भी अब वो दुनिया को ये बता रही है। जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। कि नहीं है कमतर किसी से भी अब वो दुनिया को ये बता रही है, हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को। और वजूद उसका फ़कत बदन तक वजूद उसका, फ़कत बदन तक जो सोचते हैं गलत है कितना, वजूद उसका फ़कत बदन तक जो सोचते हैं गलत है कितना। मदर टेरेसा सी संत बन के वो रूह को जगमगा रही है। जी शुक्रिया। कि मदर टेरेसा सी संत बन के वो रूह को जगमगा रही है, हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को। और अंतिम शेर पढ़ती हूँ, सुनिएगा। कि न है वो अबला न है बेचारी, न है वो अबला न है बेचारी, नए उजालों का दौर है ये, न है वो अबला न है बेचारी, नए उजालों का दौर है ये। बराबरी के तमाम दर्जे वो अपनी मेहनत से पा रही है। कि बराबरी के तमाम दर्जे वो अपनी मेहनत से पा रही है, हर एक मुश्किल में तप के खुद को वो जैसे कुंदन बना रही है, नदी के जैसे बना के रास्ता मुकाम अपना वो पा रही है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
एक फोटो तो खिंचवा के जाएगी। बेटे जल्दी से ले आओ। अच्छा बिना ट्रे के ले आओ, कोई बात नहीं। हैप्पी वुमेन्स डे।
ये हमारी संस्कृति और साहित्य की कितनी खूबसूरती है कि एक ही मंच से हिंदी की कविताएं और उर्दू की गज़लों का मंचन होता है। मैम ब्यूटीफुली डन। जो लोग भाषाओं में और बाकी चीज़ों में उलझे हुए रहने देते हैं, भाषाएं अलग नहीं हो सकती, भाषाएं साथ चलती हैं। जैसे नदियां दो एक साथ मिल जाती हैं, वो अलग नहीं हो सकती। नहीं, मैं ममता जी के पोएम से इंस्पायर होकर बात कह रहा हूँ कि जिस तरह से दो नदियाँ मिल जाती हैं एक बार फिर अलग नहीं होती, वैसे हिंदी उर्दू मिल गई हैं, अब कर लीजिए, अलग कर सकते हैं तो। ओके, सो आवर नेक्स्ट जो हमारे बीच आने वाली हैं वो हैं रुजुता देशमुख जी। Rujuta is a poet and short story writer. She writes from the point of view of women and the marginalized section of society. Rujuta worked in the development sector and coordinated the Women Empowerment and Skill Development Project. Please have a round of applause for Rujuta ji.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Vinita ji, for this beautiful opportunity. Name of my poem is Walk Till Your Land. Dear friends, our journey has been started where the sun is burning hot and the way is long, without any green shade along. So what? We decided to march. Our dreams are not for hanging. Our ambitions are not for drowning. Our hopes are not for crushing. Give someone your hand. Take someone's hand. Let's grow a green shade for our green thought. The name of the another poem is When I Knock at my door. At the crack of the dawn, day begins and machines start. One leg in kitchen, one in courtyard. I walk with them to the door. They go out, I remain inside behind the closed door. Days, months, years pass. I remain inside and never knock at my door. One day, I saw a hummingbird in the courtyard. I came in the courtyard and followed that magical bluebird to the faraway forest, across the river, over the mountain, and deep into the valley. My heart was overwhelmed with the joy. First time I felt the blueness of the sky. I came back home and knocked at my door. They all said, I am looking beautiful. I saw in the mirror and felt I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Rujita ji, for such a nice, lovely couple of thoughts that you shared with us. कविताएं सुनने का एक छोटा सा नियम है, आप कुछ लोग जानते होंगे, मैं बता देता हूँ फिर से. कभी मन करे ना वाह वाह बोलने का, तो प्लीज बोल दीजिए, जोर से बोल दीजिए. तालियां बजाने का मन करे बिना सोचे कि कभी जो बोल रहा है वो डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगा, प्लीज बजा दीजिए. Because that's what any artist wants, and that's the best way to listen to any kind of poetry. Thank you. Okay, so the final performance or final recitation for the evening comes from Naina Soin Kapil. She's a poet at heart and a bureaucrat by profession. She belongs to the Indian Revenue Services, the IRS, and she's currently posted as Commissioner of Income Tax in Delhi. मैं घबरा गया थोड़ी देर के लिए, but that's okay. She hails from the pink city of Jaipur. Her poetry has myriad flavors ranging from human emotions of love and loss, trust and betrayal, to contemporary issues challenging the society. Her writings are also a toast to womanhood. She has participated in Urdu poetry festivals like Jasht-e-Adab, Hayat, and many other poetry shows. Her genre of writing includes nazm and ghazals, one of my personal favorites. Her writings are under compilation and will be published very, very shortly. Please give a round of applause for Naina. Thank you.
A very good evening to you all. Namaskar, Adab, Sat Shri Akal, and I'm really thankful to Vinita ma'am for giving me this opportunity. You know, I'm so privileged to be here this evening to celebrate this International, Women's Day with all of these beautiful grand ladies and of course the gentlemen here. And तो मैं शुरुआत करती हूँ. जैसे I think what I write is will be relatable to all of us, क्योंकि इसमें जो हमारे struggles हैं, जो हमारे जो emotions हैं, ये सब इसमें compile किया है. कुछ गुस्सा भी है, कुछ नाराज़गी है, कुछ थकान है, लेकिन जोश भी है. So a couple of them. So I've just tried to bring in my writings. मैं आपके साथ आज share कर रही हूँ. एक शेर के साथ शुरुआत मैं आगाज़ करती हूँ, मुलाहिज़ा करें. जब तक तुम्हारे मुताबिक चली, जब तक तुम्हारे मुताबिक चली, तुमने मोहब्बत का नाम दिया. जब तक तुम्हारे मुताबिक चली, तुमने मोहब्बत का नाम दिया. जब अपना वजूद तलाशने निकली, जब अपना वजूद तलाशने निकली, तुमने बगावत का इल्ज़ाम दिया. शुक्रिया. शुक्रिया. Yeah. So that is the spirit. Okay. और ये एक नज़्म और फिर एक गज़ल के साथ मैं इसकी वो करती हूँ. मुलाहिज़ा करें कि अपनी शख्सियत से मुझे बस यही शिकायत है, अपनी शख्सियत से मुझे बस यही शिकायत है कि सच को सच और झूठ को झूठ कहने की आदत है. अपनी शख्सियत से मुझे बस यही शिकायत है कि सच को सच और झूठ को झूठ कहने की आदत है. मुझे लोगों की हाँ में हाँ मिलाने के तरीके नहीं आते, मुझे लोगों की हाँ में हाँ मिलाने के तरीके नहीं आते. बहुत बेबाक हूँ मैं, मुझे ज़माने वाले सलीके नहीं आते. बहुत बेबाक हूँ मैं, मुझे ज़माने वाले सलीके नहीं आते. शुक्रिया. और एक शेर ये देखें कि मेरे समंदर के तूफ़ान थमते ही नहीं, मेरे समंदर के तूफ़ान थमते ही नहीं. जाने क्यों मेरे सफ़ीने किनारे नहीं आते, जाने क्यों मेरे सफ़ीने किनारे नहीं आते. और मेरी मिट्टी में बगावत है बहुत, मेरी मिट्टी में बगावत है बहुत. मुझे लोगों से हाथ मिलाने के बहाने नहीं आते. मेरी मिट्टी में बगावत है बहुत, मुझे लोगों से हाथ मिलाने के बहाने नहीं आते. बहुत शुक्रिया जनाब. और जाने कितने अरसे से नींद खोई है मेरी, जाने कितने अरसे से नींद खोई है मेरी, कि अब कोई ख्वाब मेरे सिरहाने नहीं आते, अब कोई ख्वाब मेरे सिरहाने नहीं आते. और ये आखिरी शेर की, कोई नाराज़गी है तो मुझे बख्श दे मेरे खुदा, कोई नाराज़गी है तो मुझे बख्श दे मेरे खुदा. क्यों मेरी ज़िंदगी में मौसम सुहाने नहीं आते, क्यों मेरी ज़िंदगी में मौसम सुहाने नहीं आते. बहुत शुक्रिया. और अब एक ये मेरी बहुत पसंदीदा गज़ल है. शुक्रिया. ये मैं तरन्नुम से गा रही हूँ. मैं हूँ अकेली, मेरा कोई काफ़िला नहीं है, मैं हूँ अकेली, मेरा कोई काफ़िला नहीं है. मैं हूँ अकेली, मेरा कोई काफ़िला नहीं है. मैं मुतमईन हूँ खुद से, कोई गिला नहीं है. मैं मुतमईन हूँ खुद से, कोई गिला नहीं है. मुतमईन कहते हैं सैटिस्फैक्शन को. मैं हूँ अकेली, मेरा कोई सॉरी मैं हूँ अकेली, मेरा कोई काफ़िला नहीं है. और शेर ये देखें कि जो भी शिकायतें हैं मुझे अपने आप से हैं, जो भी शिकायतें हैं मुझे अपने आप से हैं. जो भी शिकायतें हैं मुझे अपने आप से हैं. मुझे अब तक अपने जैसा कोई मिला नहीं है, मुझे अब तक अपने जैसा कोई मिला नहीं है. मैं हूँ अकेली, मेरा कोई काफ़िला नहीं है. मैं खुद परस्त कब हूँ, मैं रब परस्त ही हूँ. मैं खुद परस्त कब हूँ, मैं रब परस्त ही हूँ. मैं खुद परस्त कब हूँ, मैं रब परस्त ही हूँ. मुझे नेकियों का मेरी लेकिन सिला नहीं है, मुझे नेकियों का मेरी लेकिन सिला नहीं है. और एक ये मेरा फेवरेट शेर है, इसका जो अगला शेर है बहुत बारीक है, सुनिए ज़रा ध्यान से. कि मुझे जीतने की उसकी रही कोशिशें ही हरदम, मुझे जीतने की उसकी रही कोशिशें ही हरदम. मुझे जीतने की उसकी रही कोशिशें ही हरदम. मेरा वजूद लेकिन कोई किला नहीं है, मेरा वजूद लेकिन कोई किला नहीं है. और बरसों का जो सफ़र है उसकी थकावटें हैं, बरसों का जो सफ़र है उसकी थकावटें हैं. बरसों का जो सफ़र है उसकी थकावटें हैं. मेरा हौसला अभी तक लेकिन हिला नहीं है, मेरा हौसला अभी तक लेकिन हिला नहीं है. मैं हूँ अकेली, मेरा कोई काफ़िला नहीं है. मैं मुतमईन हूँ खुद से, कोई गिला नहीं है। बहुत शुक्रिया।
अब थोड़े से शब्दों की कमी है बयां करने के लिए कि कभी हम लोग किसी दावत पर जाते हैं ना, तो तरह तरह के पकवान हमारे सामने होते हैं, हमारी पसंद के नापसंद के। पेट हमारा उन पकवानों से ही भरता है, लेकिन जायका मुंह में रहता है आखिरी की सौंफ का या पान का। तो ये जो पान हम भी परोसा गया है हमारे सामने पिछले, थैंक यू, पिछले 2-3 घंटों से जो भी हमें पकवान परोसे गए उनसे हमारा पेट ज़रूर भरा है, लेकिन जायका घर जाते वक्त इन्हीं सब चीज़ों का रहेगा। थैंक यू सो मच आप तीनों के लिए। थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू सो मच। सो नाउ इनसे इंस्पायर होके मैंने बहुत कोशिश की खुद को रोकूं, लेकिन रुका नहीं गया। तो 4 पंक्तियां मैं अपनी खुद की पढ़ रहा हूँ। थैंक यू, थैंक यू। मेन का बिल्कुल मैं पूरी पढ़ दूंगा, फिर आप ये मत नहीं, शुरुआत की 4 लाइनें मैं पढ़ देता हूँ। ये कविता के पीछे बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सा एक वाकया है। बहुत साल पहले की बात है, 15-16 साल पहले की बात है। नया नया करियर शुरू किया था। 2 मेरे करीबी दोस्तों ने एक ही दिन फ़ोन किया, बोले यार मैंने जॉब छोड़ दी है। तो हमने कहा यूजुअली जैसे होता है कि अच्छा अब कहाँ, आप क्या करने वाले हो? दोनों ने सेम जवाब दिया, कुछ नहीं करना। अरे हमने कहा यार तुम 22-23 साल के हो, अभी कुछ नहीं करना मतलब? अभी तो करियर शुरू हुआ है। बोले नहीं कुछ नहीं करना यार। तो पता नहीं क्या करना है, लेकिन ये नहीं करना जो हम कर रहे हैं। तो मैं घर जा रहा था, ऑफिस से घर जाते आते कुछ पंक्तियां ध्यान में कि ऐसा क्या हो गया यार, इतनी कम उम्र में इतनी नेगेटिविटी, इतनी एकदम धराशायी हो गए आप ज़िंदगी से। तो कभी मोटिवेशनल थॉट्स आते हैं, आजकल तो बड़े मोटिवेशनल वीडियोस हम देखते हैं, उस वक्त ज़माने में नहीं था सोशल मीडिया। तो सोचा कि क्यों ना हम जो हो रहा है उसे चैलेंज कर दें, क्यों ना जो हो रहा है उसे कहें कि उसके बिल्कुल कुछ उलट ही हो जाए। भाई थॉट तो कुछ भी हो सकता है। तो सोच ये है कि संध्या से कह दो कि आए रात्रि के पश्चात वो। संध्या से कह दो कि आए, संध्या मतलब संध्या, इवनिंग, ओके। सो संध्या से कह दो कि आए रात्रि के पश्चात वो, पृथ्वी से कह दो कि स्थिर हो जाए रात्रि हो ना पाए। संध्या से कह दो कि आए रात्रि के पश्चात वो, पृथ्वी से कह दो कि स्थिर हो जाए रात्रि हो ना पाए। पर्वतों से कह के देखो वो भी चल हो जाएंगे, और मेघों को तकोगे वो प्रबल हो जाएंगे। सारी सृष्टि में हे मानव तुम ही तुम हो, कुछ नहीं, सोच कर देखो इरादे ये अटल हो जाएंगे। सोच कर देखो इरादे ये अटल हो जाएंगे। थैंक यू। आई वुड हैव गॉन ऑन टू द होल पोएम, बट मे बी फॉर सम अदर टाइम, मे बी फॉर द नेक्स्ट एडिशन। ये एक वो बन गया कि नेक्स्ट पे आप बुलाना पड़ेगा फिर से मुझे। ये मैंने खुद के लिए सेट किया, ये मैंने खुद के लिए सेट किया था। Alright, so just to end this whole evening for a vote of thanks, may I please invite Deepshikha ji from the advisory board to just come and give a vote of thanks. Thank you.
No, I'm good. I know I stand before you and the team, but trust me, I'll not take long. So good evening, good distinguished guests. It's a great honor and privilege for me to propose the vote of thanks and express our gratitude to one and all who have joined us to celebrate this hugely empowering day suffused with hope and aspirational fervor to create a gender equal world. A big thank you to the team of interns from Kisle Sir of Ambedkar College, Amrita, Kritika and Sonal. The team of good hearts, please join us. The team of good hearts. The volunteers from the Amity, please. volunteers from the Amity who contributed to what seems to be a successful edition of us. She Speaks, edition 13. On behalf of the Aambra Foundation and all of us present here and joining us online, I extend sincere vote of thanks to Bhadra and Gayatri for their masterful dance presentation and to Mamta, Naina and Rujuta for the poetry recitation. Atika for AOL meditation for the quiet contemplation that we experienced today. And Ashish, my deep gratitude to you for holding the seminar, together and soaring high with his robust words and energy. Today I've learned a lot, and I will certainly play the recording of today's edition several times because it kept my neurons buzzing the whole day through. And I look forward to many such stimulating discussions year after year. Thank you, respected guests who have participated in today's events, either in person or online. You are the reason that we are here today. And lastly, but not the least, for our sponsors, India International Center as the co-host, Vodafone and Balaji for a partnership that goes back 6 years. Dr. Rajiv of Nanofibers for joining us for the mask partners and sponsor for the event. Ratanlal Trust, VLCC and Crunchbox for being... Yes. Ratanlal Trust, VLCC and Crunchbox for being a steady partner. Yes. Nanofiber, Dr. Rajiv. Please join us.
double applause, gender जैसे dry subject के seminar के लिए, believe me, very few people come forward, and that is why I want to give them a huge round of applause.
Our advisory board member, Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, for chief guest coordination, and Mr. Amrendra Khatua for so much which is seamless. And also a big thank you to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for choosing to celebrate the day with us, and I salute you all for this. Now let's join for the high tea, please.